3 years ago at Magref Empire, a feast was held in honor of Prince Horus's 12th birthday. Everyone congratulates the prince on his milestone. Oh boy, we know how this is going to go. The prince smiles and waves at his guests while his maids are happy to know that Prince Horus is finally at the right age to know about magical affinity attribute. Once that's mentioned, the maids go full gossip mode about Prince Horus. Amongst the 5 siblings, Prince Horus actually has the highest magical power, so everyone, including the maids, are confident that the prince will also acquire a strong elemental affinity. Perhaps fire? Another maid doesn't agree with fire since she guesses Prince Horus will be able to wield wind. A third maid chirps in and says she'll bet on water. Prince Horus himself also wonders what element he'll get. His face seems to be more of worry than excitement. Now that the maids are already talking about Prince Horus, it's not shocking for them to also mention the prince's questionable background. Before she could say anything else, another maid scolds her for even mentioning such gossip on a momentous occasion like today. After some time, it's finally time to find out what Prince Horus's magical affinity attribute is. Hovering his hand over the lectern-like countertop and light begins to radiate around Prince Horus. However, silence deafens the room as his magical affinity attribute is revealed. Much to everyone's horror, Prince Horus's magical affinity attribute is sand. Gone are the congratulatory smiles from the guests. Dismay and hostility are now showing off from them. Even Prince Horus is surprised with the stench of discrimination come off from everyone around him. All eyes are on Prince Horus, judging him for having sand, a single element, as a magical affinity attribute. To them, this means Prince Horus is stuck using just one element and can't use any other magic. Now the maid's words from earlier resonate throughout the room. Prince Horus, even with high magical power, can't seem to escape the fact that he's a concubine's child. And everyone is now talking about it now. Tears flood Prince Horus's eyes as his own father harshly tells him to stay away, mocking him for his inferiority, even calling him a disgrace to the royal family. That unfortunate day ended Prince Horus's life as the 5th prince of the Magref Empire. To this day, he can still recall everyone's judgmental eyes and taunting laughs. So, that's basically the story of how Prince Horus ended up being exiled to the desert. All he could think of in this scorching heat are the words from everyone including his own family. A disgrace. A concubine's child. Single sand affinity. Alone in the desert has Prince Horus drowning in these insults. Would things have been different if his affinity wasn't sand? Everyone might have judged him wrongly for it, but Prince Horus thinks otherwise. He believes sand magic can be amazing. Clutching his chest and biting his lip, anger surges throughout Prince Horus's body as he begins stomping on the taunting message written on the sand. As he tries to erase it with his feet, Prince Horus yells in frustration. He believes this burnt message is from his 3rd brother who has fire affinity. Prince Horus tried so hard, thinking he might be useful someday as well. Even if he gives up now, nothing will change. He'll still live in the desert, alone. Come to think of it, it's literally the best place for his sand magic. With determination in his eyes, Prince Horus focuses on the brighter side of things and begins to use his magic to look for water. Crouching on the sand, Prince Horus uses his sand sense skill. As he closes his eyes, it's like waves of frequencies travel all around the area. Once he finds the water's location, Prince Horus then uses sand magic, Sand Ripple, to create a sand wave to help him travel faster. It's like he's surfing. Only better. A smile finally forms on Prince Horus's face. Soon he laughs as he recalls everyone's hurtful words. They might think exiling him to the desert was a punishment, but for him, the desert is the best place there is. Finally, we get to see our hero genuinely smile. As soon as he arrives at the location, Prince Horus gets off the sand wave and quickly uses Sand Swirl to dig out the water's location. It's a deep sunken sand, so Prince Horus has to peek through it to finally see that there's indeed water bubbling below. Now that the prince has an ample supply of water, he begins clutching his hands, creating floating sand cubes. With sand magic Sand Castle, Prince Horus begins making a place to live in using his magic. A top-tier castle soon arises, making Prince Horus proud of his recent feat. It's not looking too shabby, don't you think? Inspecting the inside of the castle, Prince Horus begins to realize the interior's too plain for his liking. Touching the sandy walls, he begins modifying the spell to decorate the place. Now it's looking much finer for the prince. He's not done yet. With his hands still on the walls, Prince Horus still continues modifying the place. After all, a castle does need beautiful decorations too. The prince has got wonderful ideas for his castle. A lobby, some guest rooms, a kitchen, and a throne room. Though the last one isn't really necessary right now. He even builds himself a private room and study. It's all beginning to take shape now. His new life in the desert, can you believe it? Knowing full well he's all alone in the desert, Prince Horus also builds a golem to protect him from unexpected danger. Besides, it makes a nice company for the prince too. It can be quite lonely in the desert after all. Finally, in the comforts of his bed, Prince Horus lies down for a bit so he could think over his next plans. He already has water and a home. Now he needs to find food and plants near water. He also needs glass for windows. And judging by how rough his sand bed feels like, Prince Horus wants some fur to make it comfier. Sitting up, Prince Horus uses his sand sense to begin looking for something useful. His magic scavengers across the vast desert. Closing his eyes, the prince begins to feel for something. Much to his surprise, it's not on his list of needed things, but a person, a stranger who just happened to collapse in the middle of the desert. Trouble brews for the stranger, as Prince Horus could also sense multiple things surrounding the stranger. Swiftly getting out of the castle, Prince Horus uses Sand Ripple to hurry towards the stranger. Meanwhile, the cloaked stranger had indeed collapsed, and the trusted camel hovers over the stranger to protect its owner. Goblins are now slowly closing in on the duo, ready to devour their prey. The camel isn't fazed. Instead, it gives the goblins a resolute stare down as it continues to cover its owner. The goblins jump into the opportunity of attacking. And just in time, Prince Horus arrives and quickly summons Sand Spear to eradicate these nasty monsters. All of the goblins stood no chance against the prince. Woo, Prince Horus sure has impeccable timing. But wait, there's no time to celebrate just yet. Some of the goblins have managed to escape, and there are more that came out of nowhere. The prince guesses the ones he killed were all decoys. In that case, maybe this next magic skill will finally do the trick. Lifting his hands, Prince Horus casts Sand Magic, Sandstorm. A tornado soon appears, but before it could finally annihilate the remaining goblins, the beasts have quickly surrounded the strangers once more. Prince Horus has no choice but to cast another spell, Sand Magic, Sand Ring. Ripples of sand rings appear before the prince, instantly swiping the goblins in half. Literally split in half. Once the coast is clear, Prince Horus asks the duo if they're okay. He then approaches the stranger that collapsed and unveils the stranger's cloak. And wow, Prince Horus did not expect to find such a beautiful maiden underneath. It takes Prince Horus a few seconds to stop himself from staring at the stranger's face, knowing it's not really the right time to do goggly eyes. As Prince Horus carries the girl, the camel neighs in distrust. The prince reassures the horse that he's just there to help them, and that they must relocate to somewhere safe first. Using Sand Ripple, Prince Horus and the camel ride the sand wave to get to the castle quicker. When the camel gets frightened, the prince once again reassures it that it's just his magic. Doing its magic? Get it? They soon arrive at the castle. The camel can't believe their savior owns such an extravagant castle too. Inside, Prince Horus immediately places the girl on the sand bed. Staring at her, Prince Horus already knows he needs to find something nutritious and easy to eat for the girl. Or else, they can kiss the girl's chances of survival goodbye. Asking the camel to wait with the girl, Prince Horus goes back outside to use his sand sense to find anything that could help the girl. Frustration begins to grow on him when he senses a biological reaction from somewhere. It's worth a checking, I guess. As soon as Prince Horus arrives at the location, he sees white and black ants fighting. With the white ants outnumbered, Prince Horus helps them out by using Sand Spring on the black ants. The black ants are sent jumping over the sand. They eventually give up and go running straight home. Looking at the retreating ants, Prince Horus questions if he just witnessed a conflict between the desert ants. It doesn't take him much time to mull over it because a white ant had just gently nudged his pants. The white ants begin talking in ant language, to which the prince responds with a confused, "You're welcome." As a token of gratitude, they hand out ball-like membrane to Prince Horus. The prince quickly inspects it and sees that it has a sticky liquid inside. Giving it a whiff, the prince finds out it actually smells sweet like ant honey. Now that he has this, he thanks the ants for the gift before waving them goodbye to return to the castle. He quickly feeds the ant honey to the unconscious girl. Little by little, Prince Horus takes his time in feeding the girl. He's fully confident he's gonna save her. The next day, Prince Horus begins waking up. Apparently, he had fallen asleep while seated beside the girl. He's soon greeted with the girl's worried look. The girl is finally awake. She immediately thanks Prince Horus for saving her and expresses her desire to repay him somehow. The prince gently turns her down, telling her that he's more than glad she's recovered. The girl, however, had other plans in mind. She asks the prince for a favor that he might think is too much. But she's got to shoot her shot, right? She then brazenly asks Prince Horus if she could stay with him in his castle. Tears begin to form in the girl's eyes as she pleads for a place in Prince Horus' life. I meant castle. Definitely castle. When he hears the girl offer anything in return, Prince Horus's mind must have gone awry because as soon as he thought of Ait, he quickly gives himself a sounding slap. He then asks the girl on how she ended up in the desert. Before that, the girl introduces herself as Isis, and her camel is named Isis. Once again thanks the prince for saving them from the goblins. After an exchange of introductions, the prince asks for the reason why Isis had collapsed in the desert. Sadness paints Isis's face. She may not be able to divulge the whole story, but she does share how she was driven out her country, just like Prince Horus. This shocks Isis. She didn't expect the prince to have been exiled like her. Prince Horus then shares about his struggles at first. Luckily for him, his sand attribute came in handy, and he's in the perfect place too. In the desert, he'll never run out of sand. Upon hearing Prince Horus's attribute, Isis comments on its rarity and uniqueness. It's not really a common element to begin with. Suddenly, Isis seems to have realized something after laying her hands on the sandbed. Before Prince Horus could utter a single word, Isis stands on her feet and ventures outside. She gives the place a full inspection, noticing everything from the doors and hallway down to the intricately crafted pillars are all made of sand. Isis then asks Prince Horus if he built the place all by himself. Although confused with the question, the prince quickly confirms this. Now the girl thinks this is the reason why Prince Horus was banished from his country, because sand magic is only limited to using sand and everyone has told the prince it's completely useless. This infuriates Isis so much that she's not afraid to show how angry she is right now. Prince Horus was able to build such an amazing castle and even saved a stranger like her. She can't believe people had exiled Prince Horus just because he managed to have sand magic. With much seriousness on her face, Isis grabs Prince Horus's hands and tells him they'll build the greatest kingdom together. Staring back at her determined eyes, Prince Horus can't help but agree with her. Realizing how wrong it may have sounded, Isis lets go of their clasped hands and quickly explains she only meant she wanted to repay Prince Horus and that she doesn't have anywhere else to go. She really didn't meant it in a special way or something. Nope. Jittery, Isis continues to mumble an explanation to Prince Horus. She doesn't have ulterior motives or anything, and, well, also what, Isis? Before she could continue rambling, Prince Horus gives her a soft smile whilst extending his hand. With both of them having nowhere else to go, Prince Horus proposes they both help each other out starting today. Isis slowly takes Prince Horus's hand, confirming her agreement. Now that that's decided, on to more pressing matters. Prince Horus quickly leads Isis outside and using Sand Ripple, they travel together with Raku. Isis is beyond dizzy with their mode of transportation. At least Raku seems to be enjoying it now. While holding onto Raku for dear life, Isis asks the prince as to what kind of magic is he using right now. The prince quickly explains it's sand wave and makes sand ripples so they can move faster. They finally arrive at an oasis. Prince Horus plans on grabbing a few plants to put outside the castle. Isis is amazed with how Prince Horus had detected this place. The prince then tells her that he used sand-based magic that can locate objects through reflected sound. Isis is beyond amazed now. Prince Horus was able to use a precision spell that transmits clear vibrations? Spell wow. Spotting some coconut, Prince Horus picks one up. Now that they have plants, they'll need to hunt and bring back some meat and fur. It doesn't take them much time. Before you know it, they're back at the castle with meat and fur. Thanks to Prince Horus's magic, they were able to detect movement so hunting was easier to do. Prince Horus immediately gets to work in the kitchen. He wants to remove the air for meat preservation, and the nuts and cacti are to be placed near the water. Also, they'll need to handle storage and transport. All of this made easier because of Prince Horus's sand magic. Venturing outside, Prince Horus has already planted the cactus, but much to his dismay, it doesn't have the oasis-y vibes just yet. It'll take a bit of time, so they'll have to be patient. A bright idea comes to Isis's mind. She quickly gets on her knees and uses her life magic. Growth acceleration. The coconut they planted is now in full bloom. With Isis's command, its leaves begin to unfurl as it takes up all the sunlight it needs. The coconut tree is now fully grown, even bearing some coconut to harvest. Isis continues to use her magic and eventually turns the barren area into an oasis. Jumping in joy, Prince Horus wants to give Isis a hug from the amazing magic she's done. Unfortunately, his hands are met with Isis's hands, confusing Prince Horus altogether. Isis then apologizes to the prince and asks if she could have a quick bath. After agreeing, Prince Horus heads back inside the castle, understanding that they've been outside all day and that Isis would want to wash away all that sweat. Once the prince leaves, Isis exhales a sigh of relief. She then begins undressing while reassuring herself that it's all fine. To preserve her dignity, she should at least clean herself up, right? Isis can't have Prince Horus thinking she stinks. After fully undressing, Isis crouches towards Raku, asking if she smells bad. The camel gives an expression that kinda looks like he doesn't want to comment on it. At long last, Isis dips herself in the water and immediately relaxes in the feeling of the cold water against her skin. She makes sure to wash herself up, rubbing away all the dirt that's stuck on her. While enjoying her bath, Isis asks Raku as to how she should repay Prince Horus and what might make him happy. Well, a bath sounds pretty nice for the prince too. Speaking of, Prince Horus is just by the castle entrance waiting for Isis to finish her bath. He can actually hear Isis's ramblings from outdoors. Outside, Isis is still in her birthday suit, stretching out her aching muscles. She must think of something to repay the boy who saved her life. Prince Horus is having a hard time, frustrated with all these thoughts inside his head. He doesn't want to think about it, but it's getting quite hard to not think about a beautiful girl mid-bath. The idea of a shy Isis wanting to repay him big time is an interesting thought. Perhaps some skin-to-skin bonding might do the trick. Suddenly, Prince Horus hears a scream coming from outside. That's definitely Isis. He goes rushing outside, thinking she might be in danger again. But he stops mid-sentence as he takes in Isis's body while holding onto a honey ant. Isis soon realizes the predicament they're in right now. Her face grows red as she struggles to find the words to fill the awkward silence between them. Covering his eyes, Prince Horus quickly turns away. He tries to tell Isis that he didn't see anything. He didn't see anything but Isis's melons? Seems like the prince is trying to convince himself more than Isis. Isis has also grabbed her dress from earlier and covers herself. She then tells Prince Horus that the honey ants looked kinda troubled. After Isis gets dressed, the two are still awkward with each other. Look at them with their backs towards each other. Prince Horus explains he was just a bit startled with Isis's scream. The girl also tells him the honey ants sort of showed up out of nowhere while she was bathing. Speaking of, the honey ant from earlier approaches Prince Horus and tries to communicate with him. Unfortunately, Prince Horus can't speak ant language, so this will be a bit hard to decipher. Observing the honey ant, Isis believes it wants them to go with it. The honey ant, while still climbed up on Prince Horus's hands, nods in agreement. I guess they're going. The prince knows they'll need to go and make connections if they're going to spend their lives in the desert, so to the ant kingdom they go. With the honey ant's guidance, they soon arrive at what looks like a castle built entirely of earth. The honey ants have a nest for a kingdom. Entering the small entrance, both Prince Horus and Isis are amazed at how spacious the place actually is. It's also outside of Prince Horus's range of sand detection. Nearby, Prince Horus takes note of an injured honey ant that has lost one of its legs. The poor thing seems to be struggling with crawling. They soon arrive at the Grand Hall. The honey ant immediately points towards the center end of the hall where the queen of the honey ants sits. She welcomes her visitors to their ant nest and is pleased to meet both Prince Horus and Isis. Prince Horus's eyes widen with surprise. Did the queen ant just talk? Not just any language, but human language. Both Prince Horus and Isis introduce themselves to the queen ant. At some point after their conversation, the queen ant is now riding Prince Horus's sand wave. She gives their gratitude for accepting their request, but is also worried if their request is really okay with the prince. Prince Horus gives his assurance, expressing his keenness in helping the honey ants. After all, it's an endless desert. They'll have no one to lean on but each other. So what really is this request about? Earlier, back at the honey ant's nest, the queen asks of Prince Horus to escort her in meeting the king of the iron ants and attempt to resolve their indifferences. According to the queen, honey ants are bad at combat, so if things stay the way they are right now, things won't go well for the honey ants. The queen politely asks for Prince Horus to lend them his power of sand magic. Thinking about it, the prince believes the honey ants need improvement in their combat skills. But Prince Horus and Isis are fairly new to the desert, so a recon would be beneficial for them as they speak. Prince Horus then proposes a transactional relationship with the honey ants. The prince and Isis will provide the honey ants provision of magic, combat, and protection. In return, he requests the honey ants for their honey. Without further hesitation, the queen ant agrees with the fair proposal. After this, they immediately head out to meet the king of the iron ants, hence why they're all riding Prince Horus's sand wave. The queen ant then shares how surprised she is with Prince Horus's magic. She never expected single-element attribute like Sad is this powerful. Isis chimes in, saying the prince's magic is actually amazing. In fact, Sandwave is actually made for combat and allows no one to follow them. The queen is now amazed they were able to procure help from someone as powerful as Prince Horus. The prince disagrees with this. To him, it's all a mutual understanding. They're both helping each other out. The honey ant riding Prince Horus's head finally makes a sound, signaling they're near the iron ant's nest. Unlike the honey ant's castle, the iron ant's kingdom looks more of a mountain. The iron ants guarding their entrance alarms everyone of Prince Horus's arrival. The honey ant queen calls Prince Horus, who takes this as a signal to use his sand magic just enough for the iron ants to faint. Activate sand magic, Great Sand Wave. Just like that, sand formed like great tsunami waves before the two iron ants. They're no match for such power, instantly drowning in the sand. Prince Horus, together with Isis and the honey ant queen, are able to penetrate the castle's entrance now. Inside, another group of iron ants await them. Using Sandbind, Prince Horus successfully trapped the iron ants in the sand, leaving them be as they venture inside the castle. The iron ants' fortress is like the honey ants. It's wide and sturdy. The queen shares the ants actually use iron sand for the place. The iron ants have managed to build their kingdom that's rich in iron sand. That's why their place is well built. Touching the rocky walls, Prince Horus feels the sand. Though it's called iron, it still is sand. If only he's able to control this. If the king would allow them to have a mutual contract like the honey ants. Prince Horus is ready to help the king in return for some iron sand. All of a sudden, the sand walls begin to shape-shift. This amazes Isis so much, it's like watching the walls become alive. Prince Horus stares in astonishment. He never knew he can also control iron sand too. With this discovery, Prince Horus won't have any problems restraining the iron ants. He also won't have to worry about the remaining sand he has with him. All of them walk the wide hallway of the iron ants' home. At some point, the king finally makes himself known. He expresses his surprise on seeing that the queen herself came all the way to their kingdom. Even better, she brought people with her. Sitting on his throne room in the center end of the hallway is none other than the king of the iron ants. The queen of the honey ants immediately tells of her desire to talk about a possible ceasefire. However, the king is arrogant AF. He needs no such thing. The queen tries to persuade him, telling him that there should always be room for discussion between them. The king suddenly gets on his feet, carrying his sharp weapon with one hand. He then taunts the queen, telling her that she'll die in his hands. Screaming, the king promises death upon the queen of the honey ants. Lunging towards the queen, the king aims his sharp spear towards her. Prince Horus quickly gets in front of the queen, shielding her as he uses iron sand binding magic for offense. The queen then tells Prince Horus that the king of the iron ants isn't normally like this. Something feels awfully wrong with him. Prince Horus then uses his sand sense and immediately discovers there's another life detected in the king's head. Isis guesses it might be a parasitic demon and suggests they use her life magic to cure the king. For now, Prince Horus plans on tearing the parasite off the king. Prince Horus needs to do this without getting too close to the parasite and without harming the king. Concentrating his magic on precise sand control, Prince Horus starts hovering his hands in order to make a golem. As soon as the golem is complete, Prince Horus orders it to hold down the king. But the king manages to break the golem with a single swoop of his weapon. Both Isis and the honey ant queen are amazed with how strong the king is. This does not dissuade Prince Horus though. Using his magic, he casts another spell to make another golem. This time, the golem surprises the king from behind and successfully subdues him. Holding the king in place, Prince Horus rushes towards them so he could use his magic to get rid of the parasite in the king's head. Prince Horus begins to sweat as he carefully navigates his sand inside the king's head. He's able to locate the parasite. Now he just needs to fish it out of the king's head. In time, Prince Horus successfully gets rid of the parasite. As it jumps in the air, Prince Horus quickly uses his sand magic to squash the parasite. The prince then asks Isis of the king's condition. Thankfully, he's safe. His energy might have been consumed intensely by the parasite, but Isis is confident he'll wake up soon. While holding the king in her arms, the queen thanks Prince Horus for helping them out. The prince tells her there's no need for it since he only did what was necessary, both as a good neighbor and trading partner. The king finally wakes up and the first one he sees is the honey ant queen. As soon as he roams his ant eyes around the room, he's startled with Isis and Prince Horus's presence. The king gets into battle mode again, thinking the duo is there to bring down their kingdom. Isis immediately hides behind Prince Horus's back, while the queen explains to the king that they're actually the ones who got rid of the parasite in his head. Confusion clouds the king's face. The honey ant queen then tells him she'll explain everything that had transpired earlier. After a little recap, the king is furious to find out he was manipulated into a demonic state. On bended knees, the king of the iron ants begs for the queen's forgiveness and expresses his gratitude towards Prince Horus. To express his sincerity, the king wants to gift Prince Horus something as a way to take responsibility for his actions. Albeit it wasn't him but the parasite that controlled him. Raising his hand, Prince Horus asks the king and queen that they discuss such matters at his own castle. And upon arrival, the ants show their amazement of the place. The queen herself has heard of her honey ants' gossip of the splendor Prince Horus's castle has, as well as the beautiful oasis he's made. Both the king and queen get into a conversation about the place. They see Natsumeyashi honey, and wow, the decorations inside the castle. Just how amazing is the prince's magic, right? Prince Horus could only listen to them in awkwardness. But they're here for important matters. They soon get seated in Prince Horus's private study. The prince immediately goes down to business. Before he divulges his proposal, Prince Horus goes silent. He's quite bothered by the thought that he doesn't know the king and queen's names. Unfortunately, both ants don't have one. Scratching the back of his head, Prince Horus thinks this might pose a bit of a problem with their future relationship. Because they don't have names, it seems a bit unfamiliar towards the prince. Both the king and queen converse in ant language, seemingly discussing the problem. After a while, they both agree to have Prince Horus bestow them names. The prince grabs the chance immediately. While it's presumptuous of him, Prince Horus suggests the king have the name Ain, and for the queen, Mel. Both ants are delighted with their new names, telling Prince Horus they'll both treasure their names for life. Out of nowhere, both ants begin to glow, almost as if they're being encapsulated by light. In place of the king and queen, ants are now full-blown humans. And what a shocker this is for both Prince Horus and Isis. The queen jumps in joy as she tells Ain of their successful transformations. But before anything else, I think we'll all agree that these two need some clothes pronto. Oh, and did I mention that these two are now devoting themselves to Prince Horus? The more the merrier, right? As Ain and Mel now think of Prince Horus as their new king, they both want to become his kin. This leaves Prince Horus in a major nosebleed moment, and it's not from their declaration at all. Fortunately enough, Isis instantly shields Prince Horus's eyes. While Prince Horus had a lot of questions for Ain and Mel, clothes for the Ant Queen is a must right now. Even Isis agrees with this. Clothes seem to be least of Mel's priorities right now. To her, it's more important to cure Prince Horus's nosebleed. Isis screams from the top of her lungs. The least Mel could do is cover herself up. The Honey Ant Queen quickly apologizes as she isn't used to being human and all the etiquette that comes with it. Isis then hands Mel her clothes just for the time being. But because both girls have very different body types, Isis's clothes look like a mini towel on the queen. Isis then covers the prince's eyes, dumbfounded with this spectacle. Prince Horus then suggests he make a robe out of sand. After that little fiasco, both Ain and Prince Horus walk the hallways of the castle as they talk about how they got their human forms. According to Ain, it's just like the legends foretold. When a magical being is given a name by a human, a contract forms between them. Ain only expected for them to become familiars, but to his surprise, they actually turned into humans. Even with the unexpected surprise, Ain still calls this a great fortune and is happy to serve Prince Horus loyally until his body turns to dust. Upon the mention of serving the prince, Prince Horus then asks about the Iron Ants' kingdom. Surely it will be such a hassle to go back and forth their kingdoms. Pointing outside, Ain has already solved this problem beforehand. He quickly relocated the Iron Ants' kingdom just in front of Prince Horus's castle. Spooked, Prince Horus asks when did all of this happen? He didn't really suspect a single thing. As Prince Horus's new kin, their duty is to be always by the prince's side, so this is it. Aside from the ants' relocation, Prince Horus spots Mel in the oasis with her honey ants. She's currently making clothes by unraveling leaves into threads and weaving them together. Isis, seeing the prince from above, asks Prince Horus to come on down because she needs a bit of help with something. Once outside, Isis shows the prince an area she'd like to turn into a farmland. Prince Horus thinks it's a good idea, but since it's sand, crops won't properly grow because of the lack of water. In order for them to grow crops, they'll need to make soil. Agreeing with Isis, Prince Horus tells her they'll need to gather the needed materials first. Together with Ain and Mel, they all venture out to the desert and come across a lion-like monster. Ain swiftly steps out, confident with the strength he's earned together with their human appearance. When Prince Horus asks if he'll be okay, Ain bravely tells him, of course. It's not like he's going into battle without his trusted spear. The beast immediately attacks Ain, but the Ant King manages to defend himself by using his spear. He quickly pushes the monster backward, calling it pathetic as it's no challenge defeating it. And with a single blow to its head, Ain defeats the beast easy peasy. With his spear in his hand, Ain smirks, knowing full well he's gotten stronger in his human form. Prince Horus then congratulates Ain for a job well done. The Ant King is, of course, honored by the prince's praise. The prince then asks Ain on what kind of magic he used to defeat the monster. The Ant King happily shares it was merely a thrust with magic power infused into his spear. Now Prince Horus is beyond amazed. Ain was able to take down such beast with just a magical thrust. Nearby, Mel notices crows circling around the dead monster. She quickly uses her light magic to scare the crows away, and it worked perfectly. The prince once again gets curious about the ant's magic. Asking Mel this time, Mel shares the light magic she just used is from evolving into a human. Prince Horus then sulks over this. Apparently, light magic is supposed to be pretty rare. Seeing the prince's reaction, Mel quickly tells him her magic is for his use and at his immediate disposal. Prince Horus gets yet another nosebleed from Mel's frontal display of assets, making Isis sigh in frustration. And the fact that Mel doesn't seem bothered by the thought makes Isis worry even more. Something catches Isis's attention. Pointing towards another direction, everyone looks at a field of sorghum growing wild. It's a cereal grain from the grass family known for its versatility and hardiness. It also tastes really great. Isis is overjoyed with their luck right now. Finding white sorghum in the desert? Who knew? Isis then tells everyone to start harvesting a bit to take home. They'll also gather dried plants to use as materials for their currently empty field. Turning to Isis, Prince Horus is grateful to have an ally that's knowledgeable about plants. It's really a great help. A smiling Isis assures the prince to leave it all up to her. Going back to the castle, Isis lectures everyone about plants. In order for them to have good crops, they'll absolutely need good soil. So before anything else, they'll need to make compost. Prince Horus hands Isis the sandbox she requested. Both Ain and Mel also got her the rest of the materials. So first, Isis put the shredded palm leaves from when they made thread for clothing. Then the dried sorghum, a bit of sand, and lastly water. Isis also put in the leftover dates from when the honey ants made nectar. After that, she mixes it all together before using life magic to speed up fermentation. Isis then drains the fermented liquid and adds in dried magic beast dung and finely ground palm bark. Mix again, speed up fermentation again, drain once more, and voila! Look at how well it turned out. It's all nice and crumbly, but it does smell a bit. Even so, everyone's impressed with Isis's life magic. Now it's Prince Horus's turn. He then gets to shaping the compost into rods using sand magic. Then he lines them up like so in order to have farm plots in place. Turning to Isis, the prince asks for her approval. It all looks great. It might not look much now, but Isis assures everyone they'll expand it all later. And after the soil gets better, it'll be an even greater field. Ain can't help praise the improvement their surroundings are making. And it's all thanks to everyone's hard work. They now have a castle, an oasis, a farm field, and of course Ain and Mel's ant kingdoms. Prince Horus gives everyone a warm smile as he thanks them for their hard work. Everyone is touched by Prince Horus's words. They might not be the same level as Horus, but it's truly an honor to be praised by their new king. With that said, Ain gets a bright idea of building a watchtower. It's true that the view here is great and they'll all enjoy looking at it on a watchtower. The castle is actually based on a hill. However, the west and north sides where the fields are have higher ground and dunes. It's built so people could look down on the castle. Thinking it over, Prince Horus realizes they do need a watchtower. Of course, Ain gives his vow on protecting Prince Horus, so the watchtower isn't anything urgent. But nah, they're already here, so might as well do it. Prince Horus immediately uses his sand magic to make a sand tower next to the castle. It's as splendid as the castle, too. Astonishment paints their faces as Prince Horus expresses his eagerness to climb the new tower. And boy is Ain right, the view is indeed amazingly, mind-blowingly beautiful. As the wind blows Isis's hair, Prince Horus can't help but stare at something even more beautiful. His romantic ambiance does die down with all the background noise though. Look at Raku climb this tower's wall. Even Ain is cheering him on while Mel is worried for the camel's safety. Prince Horus thought they'd all be soaking in this sense of accomplishment. But oh well, this still feels like them. This is their moment. Turning towards the others, Prince Horus chimes in to warn Raku about doing dangerous stuff. Both Prince Horus and Isis are startled to see that Raku has been kidnapped by a large bird monster. I guess this calls for another adventure in the desert. Quick on his feet, Horus jumps off the sand tower so he could go and save Raku. He uses his sand wave to try and catch up with the bird that took Raku away. As soon as Horus is almost directly below the bird, he uses Sand Pillar to launch himself mid-air. Both the bird and Raku are shocked to see Horus in front of them. Horus immediately uses an incantation spell called Sand Dust, Violent Fist. From the name itself, it has summoned a huge sand fist that knocks out the giant bird. The bird's claws quickly let go of Raku, making both the camel and Horus happy. However, they seem to forget one little detail. Now that the bird has let go of Raku, he's literally falling off the sky now. Horus uses Sand Pillar once more to quickly reach the falling camel. Once the prince has his hands on Raku, Horus immediately turns the pillar into a sandball to cushion their landing. The sandball bounces off the desert sand. Soon, both Horus and Raku fall off the ball, wincing as they whoosh through the sand. After a while of that terrible landing, Raku and Horus lie still in the sand. The latter is beyond thankful for everything to be okay now. Horus then turns his head and realizes that the sand they're laying on is actually gold dust. They both sit down and observe the surrounding area. It's actually gold dust. And nearby, they see a descending staircase. Curious, Horus wonders what kind of entrance this leads to, or maybe a labyrinth. Horus then lifts his hand, controlling the gold dust like ordinary sand. This made Horus realize that it's pretty much the same as collecting iron sand. Now he can do the same with gold dust. He then uses Sand Sense and a wave of gold dust begin to travel inside the staircase. As soon as it's done with recon, Horus reassuringly tells Raku that there's no signs of danger downstairs, so might as well try going in. After Raku agrees, Horus makes a sand golem to have it lead the way. It doesn't take long for them to reach downstairs where it's somehow like a beautiful underground castle. Horus is curious if this kind of construction is normal for a labyrinth. He was really expecting to find something more like a cave. As they walk through the hallway, Horus also takes note of the decorations on the pillars. As gold twinkle in the light, it gives off a beautiful falling effect for a decoration. If they could somehow bring back some gold dust, Horus can decorate their castle like this too. In Horus's mind, he's worried whether this place is truly a safe labyrinth or one that's infested with monsters. A light emitting from an open door catches Horus's attention. Is this the path leading to the outside? As soon as they enter the door, they're met with a room full of golden decoration, and in the center, a humongous statue lies. Horus and Raku's faces are full of wonder and amazement. This place is truly glittering with gold. Looking around, Horus doesn't seem to see any signs of monsters. Strange enough, there's also no signs of human presence as well. So is this place a labyrinth? But how about that giant statue in the middle? So it isn't a labyrinth. Horus now has a much closer description of the place. It actually reminds him of a palace rather than a labyrinth. While Horus has his back on the giant statue, he hears a sounding voice. It tells Horus that the statue is actually Kinnaid, a divine sphinx. Turning around, Horus is startled to see it's the statue talking to him. It talks again, telling Horus it's not a statue at all. Wide-eyed, Horus apologizes for not realizing that there was a person living in here. It accepts Horus's apology, saying people are actually used to Kinnaid's dwelling. Most people who ventured inside this palace have been blinded by the gold outside. They pretty much get excited about their wives. But that's not what it looks like for Horus, which piques the statue's interest. Trying to casually escape this awkward yet sort of scary experience, Horus tries to bid the statue goodbye. Unfortunately, it won't allow him to do so. Seeing that the boy had taken a liking to the place, it tells Horus to stay, even assuring the prince it won't let him experience any hardship in life. Now Horus is doomed. He begins to frantically explain that he can't since he has comrades outside. He can't possibly stay in this palace forever. This doesn't bode well with the statue, calling it disrespectful to just come in and out freely. Even though its wife said she would keep Horus by her side, why can't the fallen prince simply accept that? Horus now knows this is getting way too serious, and since it has come to this, he has no choice in the matter. The statue begins moving off the ground, telling the brazen Horus they'll play a game. A crystal-like sphere starts growing atop the ceiling. The statue then instructs Horus to answer its wife's question before the heavenly gold falls. The question isn't some simple why or how, it's a question with a correct answer. If Horus answers correctly, the statue will let him out with a special privilege. If he has time to think, then maybe Horus has a fighting chance on answering this right. Hopefully. The statue then begins to ramble a riddle. It's something that cuts itself into pieces and lends a hand to the weak. However, it's overflowing with compassion. It kills all living things, making it cruel. It doubts everything in this world and always wishing for eternity. That is cowardice and constant sorrow. It takes without being satisfied, making it greedy. It then tells Horus to think about it without rushing. However, even though he has ample time left, Horus mouths his answer. The answer is humans. The statue is taken aback with the boy's answer. Silence fills the room before it booms in laughter. Horus begins to doubt if he answered correctly and asks the statue. The statue reassures him that it was indeed the correct answer. How Horus casually gave out his answer just made the statue laugh is all. It then asks Horus as to why he was so quick to answer, and the boy nonchalantly explains how the problem itself wasn't particularly difficult. And Horus thinks it's human nature. The statue agrees. But all the people who came here couldn't answer at all. Horus is the first one to do so. And the reason? Horus couldn't think of anything to say. In his mind, he thinks it's just because those people didn't know the answer to the problem. The statue speaks up, telling Horus that even though those people understood, they still couldn't answer the question. Because of pride, disposition, such things become restraints. While the clergy are blinded by money, the thief laughs. Such a noble thing to witness. The statue then praises Horus for being splendid. After giving his thanks, the statue then reminds Horus that it's about time to leave the place. The statue begins to glow, literally eye-blinding glowing. As Horus covers one eye, he peeks through the other and finds out the statue is gone. Lo and behold, in its place is a woman with dark hair. This is none other than the Sphinx. Horus then asks her why she's in human form, to which she only answers that she's a divine beast, and transforming into different forms is no trouble at all. Stretching out her body, the Sphinx doesn't hide the fact that she likes this human form. The only drawback with it is the heavy flesh hanging on her front. Squeezing her melons, she does recall human males preferring bigger ones like hers. Noticing Horus's silence, the Sphinx asks if he prefers smaller ones or maybe he wants to touch them. Horus could only stare at the Sphinx's ample flesh, seemingly dazed by the display. On a serious note, the Sphinx reminds Horus of what she said earlier before the game. If Horus managed to answer correctly, then she will let him out with a special privilege. And that is the Sphinx herself. Here we thought the special privilege would have something to do with Horus making it out alive or maybe some gold dust to take home. I guess this lady will do. Now with an extra person with them, Horus uses his sand wave to go back to their castle. It's proving to a bit difficult though. Horus calls the attention of Kinnaid. This woman is way too close for his liking. Or rather, something else is pressed on his chest as of the moment. With Kinnaid tightly hugging Horus, she seductively whispers in his ears on how she's doing it on purpose. Oh boy. Wait till this lady meets Isis. Earlier at the palace where Kinnaid lived, when the woman divulges she's actually the reward for Horus, the prince looked quite dumbfounded. This reaction wasn't what Kinnaid was expecting. She's a divine beast, offering herself to become Horus's kin. But the prince doesn't look happy at all. He immediately explains how it just feels all too overwhelming. Kinnaid then tells Horus they're just basically making a contract. If Horus takes her, he can freely use the gold sand as much as he likes. And besides, Kinnaid then turns towards the door as she informs Horus it won't budge open without her. Rest assured, if there are problems, Kinnaid will be at his beck and call. That's what led them here, riding the sand wave as Kinnaid tightly wraps her arms around Horus's neck. Horus tries to make an excuse so the Sphinx could let go of him. After telling Kinnaid that it's too hot since they're in the desert, the woman understands and lets go of Horus. Now that Kinnaid isn't choking him with her chest, Horus stands up. The woman then addresses how awkward it is when Horus talks to her and asks that he give her a name. After much thought, Horus comes up with Phi. Phi boasts of laughter, startling Horus in the process. When asked what she's laughing about, Phi only tells Horus how he's an outrageous person and looks forward to serving him. Although Horus had noticed the change of subject, he doesn't ask about it and just focuses on getting home. Arriving at the castle, Isis greets Horus and Raku. The prince gives Isis the 411 on the situation, and let me tell you, Isis does not look happy at all. Isis has been tending to plant life matters when she finds out about Phi and the gold sand Horus had acquired. In her mind, it's pretty suspicious that a woman like Phi would be alone in the desert. Ahem. You were as well, Isis. Noticing Phi's beauty and charm, Isis has a hunch that Horus is being tricked. She has to stay sharp. Green isn't a nice color on you, Isis. At the behest of Horus, Phi introduces herself to everyone in the castle. The Sphinx is now Horus's kin, ready to serve her lord. As soon as Isis, Ain, and Mel hear that she's a Sphinx, they're all very surprised. Phi wasn't kidding when she told Horus she's a divine beast. Ain is truly impressed by Horus's skills. They're all walking the staircase when Horus tells everyone that Phi will be living with them from now on. With this, they'll need to prepare a room for her. Horus then asks Phi if she has any preferences on her sleeping arrangements. The Sphinx casually drops how she wants to stay in the same room as Horus, making Isis gloom and irritation. Phi isn't finished just yet. She then tells Horus how it's only natural for a kin to stay close to its master. Meanwhile, Icy is writhing in the corner. Possibly from this nonsense she's hearing from Phi, Isis tries to mask her irritation and explains how it's not proper for Phi, in her current womanly form, to be sharing a room with Horus at all. Luckily, Horus agrees with Isis. He also needs his own privacy, you know. This earns a triumphant smirk from Isis, who tells the Sphinx to heed his master's command. But Phi is disappointed. Not backing down, she grabs Horus by the arm and smushes him in between her jugs. Of course, she'll follow his instructions, but it doesn't mean she'll back down just because Isis told her so. Faking her smile, Isis tells her she understands. But we all know deep down, Isis is already boiling in jealousy. Horus pushes himself away from Phi's embrace and tries changing the subject to subdue the palpable tension. He asks which room would Phi like, to which she quickly answers that it should be next to Horus's room. This time it's Isis' turn. She lays her gentle hands on Horus's arm as she tells Phi that it's not possible since it's already Isis's room. But this Sphinx has her way, asking about the room on the other side, which is currently vacant. Tension sizzles between these two ladies as Isis sarcastically asks Phi they should get along from now on. Crossing her arms, Phi is quite amused that Isis is speaking to her without using honorifics. Letting out an awkward laugh, Horus expresses how he's looking forward to these two getting along. Moments passed and it's already bedtime for Horus. Inside his room, he immediately lies on his bed. With his eyes closed, he notes on how exhausted today has been. From building that sand tower to saving Raku and of course Phi becoming his kin. It's been a very productive day. Tomorrow will be another day for the prince. Maybe he'll go look for food or expand their exploration area. For now, it's lights off for Horus. The next morning, Horus groggily wakes up feeling something heavy laying on him. Lo and behold, it's Phi sitting prettily on top of Horus. Horus screams, obviously startled by Phi's presence. Isis comes running in his room to find a confused and blushing Horus and Phi who's sitting on the bed now. Isis then angrily asks Phi on her motives. She casually calls Isis a little girl and tells her she was actually half asleep and stumbled into the wrong room. It's pretty obvious to Isis that this woman's lying. The poor Horus. He might get a heart attack from all this commotion. And I guess Isis should also have her blood pressure in check. She's going to have her blood boiling now that Phi is here. The girls comprising of Phi, Isis, and Mel are all lounging in the fresh water in the castle's oasis. A bored-looking Phi regrets not going with Horus and Ain. Trying to remind the Sphinx, Isis details out the very important task they have at hand, which is watching over their plant fields. Even Mel agrees with Isis on this one. Plumping up her jugs, Phi emphasizes her usefulness to Horus day and night, at work, or even in private, if you know what she means. This irks Isis as expected, but she doesn't go off on Phi. Instead, Isis tells Phi to help take care of the crops for Horus since she just said she can help with anything. Isis's words are dripping with sarcasm. Mel also chimes in, telling the two girls how Horus will appreciate both meat and vegetable on the table. Now, Phi gets the picture and quickly stand up to get started on the said task. Fi then calls them out for lounging around taking a bath. When Isis sighs like she's holding on to the very last thread of her patience, Mel tries to ease her irritation by telling her to calm down. Looking towards the sky, Isis just hopes Horus and Ain are doing fine in the desert. Speaking of, let's go and see what the boys are doing right now, shall we? The vastness of the desert allows both Horus and Ain to see the monster they're trying to hunt down right now. This beast is no ordinary one, digging its way under the sand and making it difficult for the boys to take it down. The underground beast suddenly launches an attack, making Ain warn Horus ASAP. The fallen prince has been observing the beast actually and is able to subdue its attack using sand magic Iron Sand Wall. Their defense method does not last long though. The monster's attack is too powerful for Horus's current magic skill, breaking the iron sand walls without a hitch. Quick on his feet, Horus backs off just in time for the sand wall to crash. At least he's safe. That was surely a close call for Horus. The monster isn't done yet though. Horus barely managed to dodge the last attack yet. Here's another one coming his way. It's a good thing he's also very skilled in both combat and the use of his magic. Panicking, Horus turns to Ain and tells him they're both facing a monster that's way too strong. Even Ain himself didn't expect this to happen. Ain jumps in to take offense, slashing the sand turtle mole's quartz. Yup, quartz. This monster has been eating the quartz in this region, that's why it's uniquely stronger than the others. As if these two aren't dealing with a strong monster already, the quartz on the turtle's back starts emanating light. The boys are now in for a horrific surprise. A startled Horus immediately casts numerous iron sand walls just to cover them both up. The light starts flashing the surrounding areas before everything its way booms and crashes. Now the boys are really panicking. If they get hit by that beam, they're toast. No pun intended. At some point, Horus realizes it's not just him and Ain, but also Raku. He turns to look for the camel and immediately sees Raku hiding behind a quartz stone. Raku, who's supposed to be hit by the beam by now, is being protected by the quartz. It then clicks in both Horus's and Ain's minds. The quartz crystal reflects the blast. Salvation isn't too hopeless now. Horus quickly gets to work. He starts by reinforcing the sand wall with iron sand like usual. Then he coats the surface with gold sand. And as a finishing touch, he layers quartz sand over it. Voila! A makeshift mirror barrier. With this, they can definitely be protected whilst the beam gets reflected back at the monster. The sand turtle mole's light rays finally reach Horus's area. And just as expected, the beam gets reflected by the makeshift mirror and onto the mole. The mole now gets to taste its own bitter medicine. Before they know it, the sand turtle mole crashes dead in front of the boys. And that's exactly what Horus tells the girls when they come home bearing the sand turtle mole's lifeless body. The three girls are amazed by the mole's huge body, even more amazed that Horus was able to take it down. Mel steps forward, noticing how pretty sparkly the mole's shell is. Ain quips in, telling Mel it isn't just any pretty rock. An enthusiastic Ain then asks Horus about it, to which the prince gladly obliges. Looking at the magnificent stone on the mole's shell, Horus tells everyone it's actually quartz. A stone used to make glass. Isis and Fi both have an idea what's going to happen next. As Horus smiles at his comrades, he tells everyone they're going to make window glass for the castle. Horus then delegates the work amongst everyone. Ain will help him out. Isis and Mel will be in charge of sorting out the dried plants. And lastly, Fi will help with the quartz melting process. As soon as they're done, a new machine has been made. This new baby will have them making windows in no time. Ain signals everyone that the quartz is ready. With this, Horus gives Fi the go signal to start the machine. And it does. Just not for Horus's face. The boy was standing directly in front of the machine, so the heat instantly hits him. But he's okay. And he's happy it's working out just fine too. It doesn't take long for the first window to take shape from the molten quartz. And soon enough, Horus is already knocking on the windows, checking its sturdiness. By then, the castle walls now have windows. It's indeed looking so pretty. Turning to his comrades, Horus thanks them for a job well done. Everyone warmly smiles back at Horus. They're all so proud of their work, especially the mirror they also managed to make. All of them gather in front of the huge mirror. Even if it's still a little rough on the edges, Horus is still so proud of it. Now they can actually be able to tidy themselves up by looking at their reflection. In a worried voice, Mel tells Horus about the terrible lump she's developed on her chest. Yes, exactly that lump she's pointing to. This has Horus feeling like someone just slapped him on the face. What can he expect? They just recently got to see their forms thanks to the fancy mirror they now have. Fi tries reassuring Mel by saying it's natural for them girls to have such lumps on their chest. Looking at Fi, who's also touching her lumps, Mel's worry dissipates. Now it's Ain who's asking why he doesn't have any lumps like the girls. According to Fi, Ain's more of like an armor than a human body, really. Horus then notices Isis's quietness in the corner and instantly defends himself by saying he didn't see anything. Now tall eyes are on Isis. Curious, Ain asks why Isis also lacks the lumps like him. Both Horus and Isis' brains seem to buffer with Ain's question. So the Ant King simply repeats what he said, even adding how both Phi and Mel have what they call lumps. Smiling, Ain points out how Isis has no signs of any swelling at all. This horrifies Horus, especially when he hears Isis tell Ain that she actually does have the same lumps. Taking Ain's hand, Isis grips it far tighter than expected. She then tells Ain to focus on learning other thing first. Ain, on the other hand, winces in pain as Isis now bends his fingers. Horus approaches the Ant King, telling him it's not something Ain should be complaining about. Meanwhile, Isis takes her lumps in her hands and mutter how they're not small. It's just that Phi and Mel's are both way too big. While this commotion is happening, Raku is minding his own business as he poses in front of the mirror, clearly captivated by his own reflection. A smile forms on Horus's face. Seeing everyone, he never expected to have any friends in the desert. It was only him to begin with. Now there's 5 people and 1 camel. To Horus, it feels like his family keeps growing. Life couldn't get any better for the fallen prince. Speaking of family, Horus suddenly recalls Morgia and wonders how she's currently doing. What he doesn't know is that Morgia Marev is actually walking the vast sandy desert, huffing and puffing as she struggles to survive this heat. She never thought the desert would be this harsh, and now she's out of water. Morgia wasn't prepared enough for what she calls the desert of death. Morgia now regrets not forcing his brothers to tell her where Horus's exile location exactly is, though she doubts they'll answer her though. Stopping her tracks, Morgia uses her spatial magic to grow a flower out of the palm of her hand. Plucking it out, the girl whispers Horus's name. Hope begins to leave Morgia's heart, thinking searching for Horus in the desert is impossible for someone like her. I'd think otherwise if I had spatial magic like hers though, but then she remembers why she ventured out here in the first place. Morgia can't just give up. She never wants to go back to that castle ever again, even if they beg her to do so. Continuing her walk, Morgia sees rabbits hopping all over the sandy desert. She smiles, surprised to find out they exist in this place. Suddenly, the rabbits get eaten by a frog-like monster that just came out from the sand. The frog then spots Morgia, locking in on its next prey. It quickly flicks its sticky tongue on Morgia, who uses her spatial magic, spatial transfer, to transport the monster out of her sight. Flipping her hair, this girl shows us why she's definitely a boss babe. All of a sudden, Morgia's body goes numb. Her whole body feels like it's burning hot. Morgia suspects it could be from the monster's saliva. Could it have been poison? Before she could even call for help, Morgia collapses on the sand. Will help come before danger does? In the castle, while having a sumptuous meal, Horus mentions about spatial magic. Lately, things have been getting more and more convenient for everyone, and the use of spatial magic would be beneficial for them to store food and tools easily. On a side note, can I just say how fancy schmancy cooking in the desert has been for these people? Look at that divine crab-like monster they've cooked. Anyways, back to the topic at hand. Horus only knows one person who uses spatial magic, and that's his little sister Morgia. Agreeing with Horus, Isis looks towards the heap of stuff in the castle. With how messy it's been, spatial magic could really be useful right now. No one other than Isis seems to be interested in the topic as well. Phi is busy asking for another piece of crab claw from Ain, who thinks it's too big of a piece for a lady like Phi. It's only then that Isis realizes the piece of information Horus just mentioned. She immediately asks about the little sister Horus has. Even Phi is interested now, mentioning not one of them has ever heard of Horus's family. Ain also chimes in, expressing his curiosity with knowing what kind of girl Horus's sister is. While chewing on his food, Horus recalls the only thing he's ever told them is how he was banished, and it's not even the complete story. With a despondent look, Horus decides to tell everyone a summarized version of his awful past. He starts off with telling them the reason why he was exiled, because he only had a single sand attribute. This didn't bode well coming from a royal prince like him. Horus has 4 older brothers who are all douches. Then there's his little sister Morgia, who is the only one who ever truly cared for him. Of all his family, Horus is the only one to resist the Empire's acts of aggression too. After hearing Horus's story, Ayin slams his fist on the table. He is deeply angry with how the king, Horus's father, quickly underestimated Horus's power. Phi's pretty casual about it, since all the humans she's known in her life are truly foolish and pitiful creatures. And then there's Isis, who feels sad for Horus. She's hurt by the fact that there's only one person that truly saw Horus's potential. Even Mel calls it strange that Morgia is part of Horus's family, yet she's nothing like the rest of them. This brings a smile on Horus's face, remembering that his mother used to dislike conflict like Morgia. Using his sand magic, Horus brings out a single stem of flower and thinks about how his little sister is doing. Not long, a bunch of black ants come to report an emergency to Horus. Ain quickly crouches, recognizing the scout ants he sent away to survey the area. Upon hearing the ants' report, Ain quickly tells Horus that the ants found an unconscious girl to the southwest of their location. When Horus asks about the girl's features, the ants then describe the girl having blonde hair that's tied on both sides. The girl also has big, jewel-like eyes. Hearing the girl's description freezes Horus's for a brief moment. He doesn't say a word but listens to the rest of the report. The ants then tells them that the girl was attacked by a frog monster, but in an instant she transported them using her magic. However, she was poisoned with a strong paralytic and rendered unable to move. Afterwards, she was shackled and abducted by sand goblins. Sounds familiar? It should, because Horus also realizes who this girl could be. He quickly gets up and presses everyone they have to save her because he strongly believes it's his sister Morgia. Horus is now running against time. Just like with Isis, if they don't hurry, those nasty sand goblins are going to hurt Morgia. Ain also adds that one of the scout ants actually stayed behind and is now tailing them. If they follow the pheromones, they'll be able to track the goblin's den. Horus gets moving, rushing to open the nearby castle window and summons Sandwave to transport them to the den. With Ain guiding them, Horus hopes to save his sister no matter what. Fi, who notices the tension in Horus's body, asks her master not to get carried away too much. She also shares her worry for the shackles the goblins have used on Morgia. Pressing herself on Horus's back, Fi shares how sand goblins are sly and cunning monsters who use traps as weapons. They're known for this, but Fi has never heard of goblins shackling and carrying someone away. They must be careful, she reminds. Horus agrees with her. It's not like he's the type to be careless anyways. Creating a sandball, Horus aims this up in the sky where a bird-like monster is about to attack them. The prince is calm, all right. Everyone stares at the fallen bird in surprise. No one really noticed the monster that was about to attack them. This eases the worry in Fi's heart, now knowing Horus is in full control of his emotions. They soon arrive at the location. The scout ant immediately beckons everyone to follow him towards the goblin's den. While walking the sandy trail, Horus finds a flower on the ground similar to the one he made earlier. Picking it up, Horus can now confirm that the kidnapped girl is really Morgia. This flower, which Horus made from sand, is the exact one he sent her a while ago. This just makes their rescue mission even more pressing. Racing against time, the pheromone trail still continues ahead, so they must rush there at once. At the end of the trail is the skeletal remains of a giant monster which serves as the entrance of the den. Hiding behind some rocks, everyone waits and observes the goblins guarding the entrance with their spears. The scout ant starts gibbering something, to which Ain translates for Horus. This ant apparently wishes to have more strength to fight alongside Horus. Smiling, Horus takes the ant from his shoulders and pets its head for a job well done. If it weren't for the scout ant, they wouldn't have been able to locate the den in the first place. Ain swiftly gets on his knees, calling the attention of his lord. But before he could utter a single word, Fi and Mel nudge him aside to ask Horus for some petting as well. Yup, that's what Ain was about to ask Horus too. Isis doesn't really say a word. Instead, her whole face turns red as a tomato, clearly embarrassed to hear the other girls asking for some petting. Horus looks at them dumbfoundedly. He can guess that familiars want to be petted, but why is Isis joining in this too? Moving on to more pressing matters, they still need to save Morgia. So Mel steps out, declaring she go first. She then uses light magic finger flash to strike two goblins right in the head. This causes a full-blown commotion which alerts the other goblins. Now for Fi's turn. With just one swift motion of her hand, the boulder right above the goblins gets sliced in half and lands directly on them. The remaining goblins then call for backup. And soon enough, the group is surrounded by even more goblins. Ain then tells Fi off for her flashy attack. Now they have to face another batch of monsters. They don't have a choice but to face their foes though. With Horus's direction, Mel aims for the messenger goblins while Ain, Fi, and Horus all aim to subdue the rest of the goblins. While everyone goes to battle, Isis watches with the eagerness to help. Because her magic is more about healing and support, Isis could only wish she could fight too. A goblin then comes from behind her, and although Isis is startled, she quickly picks up a wooden blunt on the desert ground. With not much thought of it, Isis swings it towards the goblin and knocks it out cold. That goblin is also the last one they had to defeat too. Good job, Isis! Wiping the sweat from his forehead, Ain can't help but say something about the multiple explosions Fi made that caused more and more goblins to appear. But he awkwardly denies it when Fi asks if it was her fault. I guess this Ant King is afraid of the Sphinx. Before an argument ensues, Horus reminds them of why they're here in the first place, and that's to save Morgia. They all venture inside where Isis knows there's a cave up ahead. With Mel using her magic to make some light, everyone walks the path with determination to find Morgia. While walking, they see swords and armor. There are gems and ornaments too, which are probably plundered from adventurers that got lost in the desert. Up ahead that pile of things, Horus finally sees Morgia. But as soon as he's about to call her, Isis stops him and points out the goblin shaman. And behind the shaman is a humongous goblin sitting casually. When Ain guesses it as the Goblin King, Fi corrects him. Judging by its size, it's just a goblin giant. Whispering, Isis tells everyone that the shaman's magic and the giant's brute strength are not to be played with. Therefore, they must plan this out carefully. However, Fi is confident she could easily defeat their enemies. How? By blowing everything up in an instant. This plan isn't really ideal, and Isis quietly scolds Fi for it. If Fi carries out her plan, then Morja will get caught up in the explosion. It's a good thing Horus already has a plan in mind and readily tells everyone of it. Horus only wants Fi to be their secret weapon. Having a divine beast as their last resort would let them fight with some peace of mind. So if things go awry, Horus will give out a signal and only then Fi will help them. With a smile and almost pleading demeanor, Horus asks the Sphinx if this plan is okay with her, to which she agrees to. Now they need to talk about a plan in defeating these goblins. With the goblins' numbers, it won't be easy for sure. Horus thinks long and hard about their offense game. These goblins aren't different from other goblin species. Therefore, they should be attracted to anything shiny. With this in mind, gold sand will come in handy. They just need to do something about the difference in numbers. Horus has made a sand golem to attack the remaining goblins. It's doing a pretty good job in drawing the goblins' attention too. Now they just need to get closer to Morja. The prince is currently cloaked in a camouflage type of cloth. With him is Mel, who's been clinging unto him this whole time. When she asks if something was wrong, Horus assures her that he's just checking the surroundings. Horus also reminds her that they need to be extra careful so the shaman and giant goblins won't notice them. Hearing his master's instruction, Mel is determined to stick closer to Horus. By the looks of it, too close if you ask me. A little while earlier, Horus revealed his plan. Fi and Ain will use Horus's golem to draw the goblins' attention. In that time frame, Horus and Mel will be covered in the mirror's veil and will rescue Morja. Mel is initially confused why Horus would take her with him. Won't she just be a burden to the prince during battle? Horus doesn't see it like that at all. In fact, he won't fight until they've successfully taken Morja to a safe place. And in the case that they get spotted, Horus needs Mel to blind the goblins with her light magic. This means Mel is essential to Horus's plan. After everyone agrees, their rescue operation soon begins. Fi and Ain both take the goblins head-on while the camouflaged Horus and Mel carefully make their way towards Morja's location. However, the shaman catches their veil and uses his staff to cast a spell on them, destroying the veil instantly. Now the giant is standing up with his axe weapon ready to pounce Horus and Mel. As soon as the giant swings his axe at them, Horus makes his iron sand wall for defense, and with his signal, Mel uses her magic to flash blinding light on both the giant and the shaman. While both enemies are currently visually impaired, Horus swoops in to get Morja. After successfully taking her, Horus leaves Morja with Isis and joins the others in subduing the goblins, especially the cunning shaman and strong giant. Things get even problematic when the shaman uses its reinforcement magic to transform the giant to an even more stronger and bigger monster. But Horus isn't worried at all. Since he doesn't need to worry about his magic hitting Morja anymore, he can absolutely go all out now. Casting sand magic, Iron Sand Spear, Horus is able to surround the giant with thousands of arrows, and once the arrows are shot, the giant is killed in a flash. Both Fi and Ain watch their master with deep admiration. They expect nothing less from Horus himself. Sometime later, Morja begins waking up. Although still a bit blurry, Morja immediately recognizes Horus. As soon as she realizes it's really her brother, Morja clings onto Horus for a teary-eyed hug. The prince smiles warmly as he assures Morja she's safe now. Isis watches the siblings reunite and gets teary-eyed as well. Unfortunately, Fi tells everyone it's not the right time to relax and points out something about Morja's actions. What appears to be a sisterly hug isn't the case at all. Morja begins sounding like a dying cat as she takes in her brother's scent and chest. Not long, Morja tells Horus she can't hold it back anymore and reveals she's been desperately longing for Horus every single day. Horus is beyond confused, especially when he feels Morja trembling for an unknown reason. Just a side note, they're both step-siblings. Fi and Isis watch all of this in disbelief, and Morja's not done yet, asking Horus to hug her even tighter and to desire her more. Well, Isis is now horrified to say the least. When she tries to call their attention, Morja, who's still hugging Horus by the way, looks at Isis with coldness. Isis is taken aback with Morja's stare. It's like she's staring at an enemy. Pulling away a bit, Morja then asks Horus on who the other three girls are. Morja doesn't even hold back a single bit, calling the girls seriously descriptive names. First, Morja describes Fi as a suspicious-looking dark-skinned woman who seems likely to seduce men. Then she proceeds with calling Mel an unbalanced girl having a young face but a mature body that'll ruin men. And lastly, Isis, who Morja sees as a witch pretending to be harmless but secretly scheming to steal Horus. Ain can't seem to read the tension between the girls and cluelessly asks Morja for his description. Horus pays no mind upon hearing Morja's words and tells her the girls are his comrades that helped him rescue Morja. Shocked, she apologizes immediately for the rudeness but angrily warns everyone to stay away from his brother as she won't hand him over to anyone. Horus doesn't remember his sister to be this clingy before. Or is it because she left home, went through dangerous events, and felt lonely? Anyways, Horus diverts her attention by telling Morgia he need to remove the shackles on her wrists. After instructing Morgia to put the chain on the ground, Horus uses Sandblade to destroy it. Unfortunately, not a single scratch was made on the shackles, so Ain volunteers to give it a try. Yet the shackles remain scratch-free. Ain then turns to Phi, asking the Sphinx if there's anything she could do to it. But Phi explains that the shackles has a curse inscription placed upon it. Even a Sphinx like her would have a difficult time dispelling it. So Isis steps in to use her magic. She thinks the curse would undo itself if they ask the shackles. Still scratch-free, but it did gain a voice. The shackles itself tells them it won't come off that easily. Of course, everyone gets spooked, especially Morgia, who happens to be shackled to it. The shackles even confirms to Morgia that it can talk, causing the poor girl to smack it relentlessly on a nearby rock. Although it won't do damage to it, the shackles still reprimand Morgia for being annoying. It then asks Morgia why give it life if they're just going to call it gross. Horus is confused while Phi praises Isis for using an interesting kind of magic. But Isis's face is filled with disappointment. Her magic can grant raw life force itself. Sometimes high-level magical tools gain will on their own. Isis was hoping to ask the shackles directly to unlock itself. Right now, Morgia is splayed on the desert ground, seemingly hopeless from this ordeal. The shackles answer Isis as well, pointing out its job is to lock and not unlock. It'll keep locking and locking. Unlocking is impossible ever. Isis tries to persuade the shackles too. However, the shackles still won't budge and give Isis a condition. If Isis lets it lock onto her instead, the shackles might reconsider. Upon hearing this, Morgia vehemently refuses. Isis also saved her life, and there's no way Morgia would want Isis to be her substitute. Having another idea, Ain asks if Morgia can free herself using her spatial magic. While Horus thinks it's a great idea, the shackles immediately dissuade them. The moment Morgia separates from it, Morgia's spirit will be torn apart and she'll die. Sadness fills Morgia's eyes. Does this mean the shackles will be with them for a while? Sighing, Morgia accepts her fate and names the shackles Shackles. Pretty creative, huh? Now that things are settled, Phi then asks Horus about exploring the rest of the den. Ain immediately agrees, saying there might be treasure stashed inside. Horus realizes Ain's right. Goblins are known to hoard valuables. They might even find something to remove shackle. Or maybe not. Before they leave, Isis calls Morgia's attention to tell her it's weird that she's also shackled to Horus like a leech. Isis views this as too much closeness that ordinary siblings normally have. Morgia answers that it's perfectly normal everywhere, to which Phi calls a lie. Horus then intervenes and tells Morgia he can't see ahead. Morgia looks deep into Horus's eyes, telling her brother his vision should be filled with her alone. Phi then cuts the moment, hugging Horus from behind. She then calls Morgia girl number 2 and commands her to show some respect to her rescuer and to move aside. Squished between two girls like this isn't doing well for Horus's peace of mind. Isis can only stand on the sides, calling out Phi for her brazenness. With all these ruckus, Morgia lifts a single finger and nonchalantly uses her spatial magic to teleport Phi towards Isis. Now Phi is hugging Isis. Morgia sincerely thanks Phi for saving her, but also highlights how rescuing her is different from her possessiveness with Horus. Well, that's an additional girl vying for the prince's heart, and an additional headache for Isis. Now that they've decided to explore the goblin's den for treasure, the group venture further inside the cave. They discover the complexity of its interior, and considering its sheer scale, Ain believes there might be some hostages too. Not long after, Horus hears voices from around the corner of the cave. Everyone then rushes towards the area and are greeted by the sight of a cage. Approaching it, a nasty smell engulfs Horus's senses. The smell had come from inside the cage, which imprisons at least 5 slaves. Not wasting any of their time, Ain steps forward and destroys the cage with his mighty weapon. After thanking Ain, Horus extends his hand towards one of the slaves and tells them they're free to get out of the cage now. But Horus's kindness is met with fear and hostility, surprising the prince a bit. One slave even gets into a protective stance, as if Horus and the others are their enemies. Horus understands they're terrified right now. And seeing the collars around their necks, Horus realizes these imprisoned people are slaves. The protective slave suddenly grabs a piece of sharp wood from the broken cage and aims it at Horus. He then angrily asks the prince what he wants from them. Why would they come right now after all this time? This slave thinks Horus will just take them and sell them off again. This is when Isis steps in front of Horus, telling the slave they are not here to sell them. Instead, they're here to help. Isis then steps inside the cage and proceeds towards the ill slave lying on the ground. Crouching, Isis begins summoning her life magic, Life Restoration. A magic circle then appears in front of her and orbs of light begin to surround the ill slave. A few moments after, the ill slave reveals his wound is now healed. When Horus asks the slaves if they trust them now, one answers yes. But then, not everyone is on board with it. One female slave screams she won't trust Horus. Unlike the ill slave who only had a collar, the female slaves are actually under a slow goblin's curse. Upon seeing the mark on the girl's stomach, Fi realizes the girls' bodies are magically mutated just to bear goblin children. This makes the female slave angry. Now that they've lost all hope for help to arrive, now that they're like this, help suddenly bursts the cages open? Why? Suddenly the raging female slave's collar is now on the ground. Thanks to Morja's spatial magic, the collar is now history. It's also a good thing the collar's an old model, so it's not really harmful, unlike the one on Morja's wrists. Then it's Isis's turn. Crouching in front of the female slave's body, Isis lifts her hand towards the mark on the slave's stomach. If magic cursed them to be like this, then Isis can just use her life magic to rewind their body's current state. The cursed mark on both the female slaves are now starting to disappear. And soon after, it's totally wiped clean like it was never there in the first place. After that, Morja also worked her spatial magic to undo the collars on the rest of the slaves' necks. Now that the collars are gone and the goblin's magic has vanished, Isis declares these people free. They're not slaves anymore. All the 5 slaves are elated with joy. They're now truly free. While they celebrate their newfound freedom, one slave asks about them being registered with the slave guild. Morja chimes in to reply, telling them that the desert is the land Horus, her brother, will rule. They don't need to worry about those things anymore. A humble Horus smiles at them, assuring them that they don't have to worry at all. He's still not ruling the desert yet, but these people are in Horus's good hands. The short-haired slave couldn't hold back her tears anymore. She tearfully thanks Horus and the others for rescuing all of them. Now that that's out of the way, Horus tells everyone they'll resume their treasure hunt. The slaves are now confused as to why they would look for treasure in a goblin's nest. But nevertheless, Horus crouches down to use sand sense. Since they've already saved Morgia, it'll be a waste to go back to the castle empty-handed. He then turns around and tells the slaves he already took care of the goblins. All of them are surprised, of course. When one asks about the giant goblin, Horus smilingly tells them he beat that one as well. All of the slaves are now dumbstruck, just in awe of the people that saved them. While walking, Isis is the one to tell them that Horus uses sand magic. This is why Morgia knows her brother will make the perfect king of the desert. All of the slaves look at Horus with utter respect. One slave even approaches him, calling him Your Majesty, as she thanks Horus for helping her. This is a bit awkward for Horus, who asks for them to stop. All these compliments sure are making his back all tingly. Fi calls this Horus's moment for pride. After all, he did build a castle, evolved monsters into human forms, and even tamed divine beasts. Fi just added more fuel to the fire, perhaps. Now the slaves are taking all these information in with amazement. Grabbing Horus, Fi smushes him on her chest, even putting his hand on one of her ample melons. She then tells the slaves they're lucky to be standing before the future king of the desert. The poor prince struggles to talk whilst being smushed like this. He's beyond confused as to what Fi's doing right now and asks the Sphinx exactly that. Answering him, Fi casually tells him that a king surrounds himself with women, and that's exactly what she's doing. Perhaps the Sphinx has Horus mistaken, because that's not what the prince wants honestly. While his hands are still on Fi's jugs, the slaves horrifically watch this scene unfold. They can't believe just because Horus is a king, it's an all-you-can-touch free-for-all for him. Hearing this has Horus pulling away from Fi's hold. But then again, he's no match for Fi's strength. She easily takes his hand again, this time placing it inside her shirt. Horus screams as he's being forced to do things against his will. Now Morgia and Mel are furious and jealous. Morgia angrily screams at Fi, telling the Sphinx it's a sister's job to look after her brother. Mel expresses how she also wants to serve the king too. Horus then gets surrounded by the 3 girls who are both asking to be touched and felt like Fi. Even the shackles cheer on for the girls to go wild. Horus, on the other hand, fears for his purity now. He doesn't really want any of the things the girls are offering. While that's happening, the female slaves call Isis's attention, asking her if she didn't want to join the others. Blushing, Isis tells them she's fine and that she and Horus are just comrades. She goes on to ramble about them being absolutely good comrades and that there's no need for any service or anything like that. The 2 female slaves look at each other, looking past Isis' poor reasoning. They then cheer on for Isis to go for it and to not lose to the other women. This makes Isis even more horrified. Their cheers is only making her feel like she's actually losing. The short-haired slave then gives Isis a push, insisting that she make a move or else the others will snatch Horus. While the other girls fight to have Horus, Isis pulls the prince towards her. And when he looks at Isis, he's met with glittering eyes and a blushing face. Totally kawaii! Even Horus is starstruck. A worried Morgia screams, telling everyone her brother has fallen prey to the witches. That's Isis, poisonous fangs. Fi, on the other hand, is impressed with Isis's move. That was a good one, honestly. Even the slaves are embarrassed. Anyways, they soon arrive at a place glittering like diamonds. The short-haired slave crouches to the sandy ground, amazed with the sparkling sand. She then calls Horus's attention to tell him the place is full of jewel sand. Horus doesn't seem to know what jewel sand is, so the slave enumerates all the present jewel in the sand: diamonds, rubies, sapphires, and even pearls. Fi has also found seashells around the corner, guessing the goblins must have gathered these as food. They were only here to save Morgia, but then they get this amount of jewels as bonus? As Mel would call it, what a stroke of luck. However, Horus seems to have no use for jewels, to which Fi refutes. To her, having assets is never a loss. And besides, these jewels are very useful to Horus. Bending down, Fi strains her hand on the jewels, revealing it to be in sand form. As soon as Horus hears this, he immediately summons a diamond golem using his sand magic. Everyone is happy to see Horus using the jewel sand. For now, Horus instructs everyone to bring back as much as the castle can store. Before he could finish talking, Fi, who's writing something on the rocky wall, catches Horus's attention. The writing is a warning to everyone who dare enters the premises and steals the sand. This entire area is now under the dominion of the Desert King, the supreme land, and the removal of sand or any resources is strictly forbidden. Signed by hers truly, servant of the great Sand King, the Sphinx. Well, that should do the trick, right? After gathering whatever they could bring, the group together with the freed slaves return back to the castle via Horus's sand wave. The freed slaves are all amazed with how fast they're going and praises sand magic for it. Morgiana smiles like a proud mom. Of course, sand magic is amazing because her big brother is amazing too. Speaking of Horus, he's still worried with what they left in that den though. Calling Fi's attention, he expresses his worry with what Fi wrote on the den's walls. However, Fi tells him it's not too much at all. She also adds that the king's rule doesn't fully extend to this desert, but Horus isn't a king at all. The king Fi meant is the king that rules the lands like the Magref Empire. To her, if they have ruling over the desert, they should have demonstrated their power over it. But since they haven't, the desert is free to be ruled by someone else. After some time, they finally arrive at the castle. The freed slaves are all stunned with how huge and beautiful it is. Raku then comes running out to greet everyone with Horus, very much happy to see the camel. The freed slaves also approach Raku to greet him, leaving the camel a bit confused. He asks something in camel tongue that Horus understands. The prince then replies, confirming that these people are the kids he saved. Then Raku turns to Morgiana and asks another question in camel tongue. Best believe Horus is a master in camel language, since he also confirms to Raku that's her younger Morgiana. Raku then says something that has Horus agreeing that the castle will get even livelier now. Morgiana, on the other hand, is confused as to how this conversation is even possible in the first place. Now that they're in safe premises, Horus then asks Morgiana why she's gone to the desert, to which his sister blatantly reveals she's grown tired of their family. Hearing this, S thinks it's because of the harsh treatment towards Horus. With a despondent look, Morgiana tells her it wasn't anything harsh. Ever since the moment the Emperor and that woman found out Horus has sand affinity, their attitudes changed. They never thought for even 1 second that banishing Horus was wrong. This fills Morgiana's anger to the brim. Still, she's convinced that those people made a foolish choice. Through this incident, Morgiana knows her brother's greatness has been proven. Ever since Horus left, Morgiana had lingering regrets for her brother. So from now on, Morgiana promises to be by Horus's side. She will devote herself to her brother. Hearing this touches Horus's heart. Even Fi smiles, praising Morgiana for having good judgment. Fi already expected such from her master's younger sister. Morgiana soaks in the praise too, rather proudly at that. Meanwhile, back at the goblin's den, a stranger man is expecting what's left of the place. As his torch lights up the cave, the strange man is surprised to find it's all gem sand. He thinks about what could have happened to this place. On the way to the inside cave, I see a destroyed cells with goblin corpses. Did someone save the slaves and steal the jewels? Before he could finish thinking about the possibility, he spots the writing Fi made on the wall. As he reads, he finds out that this area is managed by the king of the desert, a supreme land, and is strictly forbidden to be taken. The man soon sees the inscription for the word Sphinx and is shocked to find out that a divine beast was here. He couldn't believe it himself. Even if the slaves were eaten by the divine beast, why go out of the way to cut the prison bars? Why not eat it as it is? Or maybe this is just a threat. The man smiles triumphantly. Now he sees what's going on. Whoever it is has defeated the goblins and made the freed slaves carry the gem sand to this cave. If they keep the slaves in check with threats, fewer people will try to interfere. The man now has valuable information for the big shots at the city. Arriving at El Dorado Republic capital, Eldora, the man meets up with a certain Mr. Tanura to report the information he's gathered from the Desert of Death. The man cuts through his steak, biting every last bit of it before wiping his mouth. Mr. Tanura watches in disdain but thanks him for his hard work. When asked if he's told anyone about this information, the man says he hasn't said a single word. With that, Mr. Tanura lifts his hand to signal his butler to get the reward. The butler immediately presents the man with a bag of money, but the man has turned greedy, saying this reward isn't enough. This information he has is extremely valuable, and the future depends on it. Information like this deserves more than just a bag of money and maybe in the future all sorts of things. Mr. Tanura stares at the man before laughingly saying the man's a greedy one. After telling the man he likes him, Mr. Tanura then agrees to add extra to his reward. However, Mr. Tanura's butler gets his katana out and swiftly slices off the man's head from behind. The maid who was serving the guest screams in horror, alerting the man in a suit from outside. The man stares at the lifeless body in pure shock. Stuttering, he tells Mr. Tanura this is a problem for the establishment. Mr. Tanura doesn't seem remorseful at all, saying a corpse may be lying around but the Lord is still here. He also praises the shop's reputation as well. And with that, Mr. Tanura offers to pay for the cleanup costs. Surely the man won't have any more complaints, right? After presenting the shopkeeper with some cash, a catman suddenly appears at the doorway. The catman, clad in a smart suit, tells Mr. Tanura he's already past his reservation time. So, if there are any complaints, the room is now reserved for Alibaba. Mr. Tanura immediately recognizes the Alibaba this catman is talking about and sarcastically asks if the Alibaba Chamber of Commerce having management difficulty. If so, Mr. Tanura mockingly extends his help so the company could become more flexible with time. When Mr. Tanura calls the catman a stray cat, the catman smilingly introduces himself as Ketsue Alibaba. He bites back at Mr. Tanura, pointing out the Lord's inability to keep track of time, yet he's now offering a contract. Well, Alibaba says it's fine if he kills them and break the agreement. However, he knows the Tanura Trading Company is smart, so he believes Mr. Tanura will be smart with his next move as well. With that, Mr. Tanura and his men leave the room and the establishment. Alibaba is then left with a bloodied corpse on the floor. So before anything else, he takes out a small black box to help with the cleanup. As soon as he opens the box, it immediately sweeps in the body from the floor. When that's over, Alibaba finally sits on the couch and asks the maid to bring them some delicious food. After the maid leaves, Alibaba's brother, the bulky type of a cat, asks about the strange story about Mr. Tanura. He suggests to observe for now and wait for Tanura's company to make the first move. Even with just knowing the desert is dangerous, Alibaba is so impatient that he had no choice but to make the first move. He's rather agitated because the gold mined in the Magref Empire has significantly decreased. The gold used for El Dorado's coins are already import goods from a neighboring empire. The Tanura Trading Company will surely use this opportunity to make a profit with gold. Alibaba's brother then realizes something and asks if Alibaba is trying to replace the empire. Is that even possible? If the rumors of the desert being a treasure trove for ice resources, then maybe there's a possibility to the thought. Anyways, he already knows of a person who always said he was going to the desert, and if it's him, Alibaba is curious if he'll be alright. Meanwhile, in the desert, a catwoman is being chased by a huge sand snake. She's currently running for her life. She also thinks of something to stop the monster, but everything in her backpack can't be the solution to her dilemma. The sand snake draws nearer and nearer, its mouth wide open, ready to eat its prey. As the catwoman screams for help, Horus arrives and uses his sand magic iron sand great spear. He unleashes multiple spears all over the snake's body, piercing it to death. The catwoman then looks up to find Horus atop his sand wave. As soon as she recognizes it to be a person, the catwoman readily has her hands up in surrender. As her body shakes, she tells Horus she's harmless and she can only offer her body as payment. This has Horus dumbfounded and blushing. He quickly tells the catwoman that's not his plans at all. Is this the person Alibaba was talking about? If so, will she side with Horus? Using his sand magic iron sand great spear was definitely the bold choice since it immediately killed the giant sand snake. The catwoman surrenders her arms, begging Horus not to do anything perverted to her. But Horus just gives her a dumbfounded look, oblivious with what the catwoman's talking about. Once they know for sure that the sand snake is dead, everyone looks at the catwoman who's asking for her life to be spared. Again, Horus is clueless since he just only helped her. When he tries to introduce himself and the others, the catwoman raises her paw to stop him from doing so. The catwoman starts rummaging through her bag for something. While doing so, she's also trying to convince herself they won't find out she's a Kate Sith. They definitely won't force her to get into something pervy if she uses this stuff she's looking for. She's smart after all, and fooling dumb humans is perfectly easy. She's saying all these things while Horus and the others watch her nearby too. When the catwoman finally finds the medicine she's been looking for, she shouts in relief. This will make her look like a human. While she chugs the whole thing, Morgiana comments on how much of an idiot the catwoman is. After a few minutes, the catwoman has sort of changed her appearance. Well, she thanks them for waiting and introduces herself as Persia, a human merchant. However, she doesn't look human at all. After she thanks him for saving her earlier, Horus introduces himself and asks Persia of Kate Sith why she's in the desert. The catwoman is speechless. When she asks Horus why he knows she's a Kate Sith, the prince casually tells her it's because they all saw and heard everything. Plus, she doesn't really look any different from her earlier form. The Kate Sith then covers her body, telling Horus he might be able to do whatever he wants with her body, but her spirit won't break anyways. Horus yet again highlights how he doesn't plan on doing anything to her. The Kate Sith still has her doubts, asking if Horus means it. Listening to all this, Morgiana's brows furrow as she asks the Catwoman about her real view of humans are. Tone dripping of hatred, the Kate Sith tells them that humans are seriously messed up monsters. To her, they'll mess you up until you're a sloppy mesh, and in the end they throw you away like trash. Humans are just terrifying creatures. The Catwoman's explanation has Horus's mind getting creative, which is making him blush. Mel then chimes in, assuring the Kate Sith that their master would never do something like she had described. But the Kate Sith and her trust issues won't have it, saying they'll never know someone's true nature at all. Mel then makes the Kate Sith look at her antenna. Although Mel is a honey ant, she's been treated well up until now. Hearing this has the Kate Sith's opinion starting to get swayed. When she asks Mel if she's telling the truth, the Ant Queen smilingly says yes. With that, the Kate Sith wants to trust Mel a little bit. Wanting to seal their newfound friendship, the Kate Sith tries to give Mel's antenna a fist bump when the Ant Queen karate chops her hand away. Smiling, Mel explains that her antenna only belongs to her master. After that, Horus repeats his question and asks the Kate Sith what she's doing in the desert. The Kate Sith's demeanor suddenly changes, realizing her mission now. Sitting down on the sand, the Kate Sith explains she came to expand their business further into the desert. This is the desert of death where even surviving is difficult. That's exactly why the creatures living here need supplies. With that, the famous Alibaba Trading Company can't afford to miss this as the lead pioneers of new development. Horus isn't buying all that sales talk and asks for her true reason. The Kate Sith quickly tells him that she jacks up prices on ignorant suckers like them. Horus and the others grow quiet. And in a matter of seconds, they're on their way back to the castle riding the sand wave. Seeing them leave has the Kate Sith shouting for them. Desperate, she says it was just a slip-up and asks for mercy for saying those things out loud. Horus ultimately changes his mind and takes the Catwoman with them to the castle. As soon as they arrive, the Catwoman's eyes twinkle in awe as she takes in the splendid castle in front of her. Morgiana proudly tells her it's because her big brother's sand magic is amazing. Horus did build this, after all. That's when the Kate Sith remembers that the exiled prince from the Magref Empire also had sand attributes. Although Horus hears this, he stays awfully quiet. The Kate Sith then dismisses her thoughts, saying coincidences like that can really happen. She then goes back to the subject of the castle. What really surprised the Kate Sith is this, the lush green oasis. Not only that, but also the watchtower taller than the castle and fields made using compost and leaf mold. Just then, Isis comes to welcome Horus back. He also sees Fi approaching them. She just got back from hunting a large tiger gazelle. Looks like they'll be having delicious meat for dinner. The last one to greet Horus is Ain. With the group complete, the Kate Sith is surprised that there are more humans here. Fi then notices the Kate Sith, praising their master for being so popular. Horus quickly denies this, saying the Kate Sith is just a merchant they happen to run into. Hearing that the Catwoman is a Kate Sith merchant has Fi commenting on her good nose for business. Well, that's what it means to be a merchant. The Catwoman even boasts of being one of the better ones. With that, she insists to be called Persia casually. That aside, Fi ignores Persia and asks Horus if he could spar with her now. Horus looks completely puzzled since he doesn't think he'd be much of a match for the Sphinx. Fi sees this as an over-exaggeration, saying if they spar, the goal is just to cover Horus's weaknesses. And so, the two get into position. Fi is going to make the first move and wants Horus to retaliate to it. Smiling, Fi opens her palm, signaling her magic activating. The water from the oasis slowly rises and not long, a huge wave is in front of Horus. The prince quickly uses his sand wall for protection. However, the waves don't stop and just keeps on coming and coming. Horus's sand wall begins cracking until it finally breaks down, drenching Horus in water. As a spectator, Morgiana scolds the Sphinx, saying that was too much. But Fi only tells her it won't be good to hold back either. Isis, on the other hand, runs to help the sand-deep Horus. As soon as he's able to breathe, Horus asks Fi if that's what she meant was his weakness. Fi quickly confirms this. Even if Horus hardens his sand with magic, it's still weak against water. Fi wants Horus to remember that fact. Isis then chimes in to ask about Fi's powers. She thought the Sphinx is a fire and wind type, but is surprised that she can use water as well. Fi explains that she can specifically use two higher-tier attributes, Scorching Heat and Storm. The water was merely raised up by her wind magic. When Horus asks for another bout with Fi, the Sphinx realizes the prince has already thought of a counterattack. With that, Fi raises the water from the oasis again. Using sand magic again, Horus makes another sand wall, but this time it's ironclad. Horus smiles victoriously as he sees his sand-iron wall standing strong against Fi's water attack. Seeing this, Fi smiles proudly. Iron sand looks very much acceptable. Horus then thanks the Sphinx for making him realize his weakness and provide a better countermeasure against water. Suddenly, Persia tells Horus to wait and pours liquid on the iron sand wall. If he's planning on needing more countermeasures, then she'll gladly provide another weakness. The iron sand wall starts fizzling. Persia then pokes on it, making it crack and crumble in the process. She had poured a type of corrosive liquid that makes iron rust and become brittle. Crossing her arms, Persia suggests using gold which resists corrosion or high-purity silver or platinum. The question is, where will Horus get gold? Horus takes in her suggestion, then summons his gold sand wall. This has Persia's eyes widen in shock. She even starts touching the gold sand wall to see it's real. Now this won't rust. Fi then asks if the wall's core is made of iron sand, to which Horus confirms. It's iron sand mixed with ordinary sand then coated with gold sand. Persia hasn't recovered from the shock of seeing a wall made out of real gold. She quickly asks Horus where he even got all that from. The prince honestly tells her about the storage vault under the castle. When Persia asks if she can look at it, Horus gladly takes her down there. And to her surprise, the whole area is nothing but gold. She even takes a gold bar and tries to feel how heavy it is. Perhaps about 500 kilograms. This means this whole room alone is over 50 tons of gold. This is exactly what they call the Golden Land. Horus even says there's still a lot more at Fi's basement. Even Fi confirms this, saying this room is only about 1% of what she really has. And there's also the place they found earlier where they can harvest gemstone sand, rubies, sapphires, pearls, and diamonds to be exact. Persia's ears are now tingling with all this information. She quickly goes to Horus, calling him the Lord of the Land, begging him to do business with the Alibaba Trading Company. Persia promises they won't him lose out if he agrees. Persia even buries Horus's hand in between her melons for good measure. That's when Fi intervenes, squashing the prince in between her even bigger melons as she takes Horus away. She then tells the Catwoman to tell them first on who she really is. Persia had suddenly realized she hasn't really given them a proper introduction, so she tells them she's Persia of the Alibaba Trading Company from Eldora in the Republic of El Dorado. Horus then recalls that El Dorado had active trade with the Empire. Although he's right, Persia explains that her big brother Alibaba doesn't look kindly on their relationship with the Magref Empire. The Empire acts tough, leaning on its vast resources. Even though those resources are running dry lately, the Empire won't change their attitude. On top of that, too much of El Dorado's resources are flowing into Magref. With that, Persia wants to establish trade with the desert people. If that happens, they won't have to deal with the Empire's unfair trade terms anymore. Through this trade, Horus and his people can get useful supplies and will gain trust from El Dorado as well. Thinking about it, this will make good use of all those stockpiled assets and make their daily life easier. And if Horus can build enough trust, it might even serve as a cover in case someone comes looking for his sister Morgiana. Giving Persia a smile, Horus finally agrees to trading with the company. Persia is excited upon hearing Horus's quick decision. When Persia tells them they'll start now, one of Ain's black ants give them an urgent message. Ain quickly asks the black ant what's going on. To their shock, the gem cave is currently under attack. Isis then begins treating the injured black ants, happy that everyone can recover. The black ants aren't done relaying their message too. When Horus asks Ain about what they're saying, he tells the prince that a group of armed humans are rampaging the gemstone sand cave and it seems they've brought along a small giant with them. From the looks of it, a fat human was leading the group. Persia quickly swirls her front hair and asks if the fat human's hair looked like that, to which the black ant says yes. One of the rescued slaves then reveal it's Tonuura. According to Persia, that man uses money to get whatever they want, be it murder, cover-ups, and the like. His armed followers include mercenaries and magic users. That small giant is also a demi-human used as a slave. Persia warns the prince to be careful. A few hours before the black ants reported the theft, Tonuura is traveling the hot desert in a carriage driven by a camel. He also has a slave fanning for him. The lord is complaining exasperatedly because of the hot weather. The poor slave is then scolded for being a weak little brat just because she's not fanning Tonuura harder. He then shouts for his mages to bring him water and for his giant slave to get him a change of clothes. When the mage transports water using his magic, Tonuura begins taking a bath. However, the water immediately runs out and the mage collapses to the ground. Tonuura pays him no mind, ordering the mage for more water. Another mage helps his comrade out, explaining to the lord that they can't produce any more water. Even with the water bracelets, their magical power has limits. Tonuura changes into his clothes and looks at the mages with disdain. He even calls them useless. Another mage is about to complain, but Bistul tells them to endure it since they've been paid generously for this job. Tonuura is already grumbling about having to pay the mages such a high price when they're slacking on their job. He then screams at all his slaves to move out fast because there's still gold, silver, and treasure sleeping in this desert of death. If someone else finds the treasure first, Tonuura says he'll be taking a massive loss. All of a sudden, a force of wind slaps their carriage, making it crash in the process. Tonuura's men then scream of the massive monster and tells them to prepare for battle. Everyone runs away, leaving Tonuura to fend for himself against the giant snake in front of him. Tonuura quickly turns around to order his slave to take his place. The giant hears this and quickly holds the snake's mouth just so he could stop the monster from devouring the slave. Tonuura cheers for the giant, ordering it to strangle the monster. The giant begins sweating as he tries to fend off the giant snake. Lifting the snake, the giant tries throwing it off his head. However, the snake is still alive and is still very hungry. Watching this, Tonuura scolds the giant for not killing the monster. He then orders anyone else to protect him. Bistul immediately summons Orthos, a two-headed giant wolf, to attack the snake. The wolf sinks its sharp fangs into the snake's body and not long it dies from the poison. After telling Tonura to relax now, Bistul pets his two-headed wolf. He then tells the Lord that there aren't many monsters that can beat his wolf, so there's nothing to worry about. After praising Bistul for a job well done, Tonura scolds the giant for being the opposite. He says the giant almost got him killed, calling him useless. Tonura then gets his whip out and starts lashing the giant. The poor slave could only cover himself as he tries to tell Tonura he hates killing. He's now covered in bruises from the lashing. After that, Tonura orders his mages to repair the wagon, then tells the giant to pull the cart in place of the dead camel. According to intel, there's a gemstone cave around here, so they need to find the entrance no matter what. Tonura then notices the black ants carrying something that looks like gemstones out from deeper inside. There are guards patrolling as well, so even if it's not gems, it must be something valuable. Tonura grins evilly as he orders his men to take everything that can be turned into money. After the black ants had reported the theft, the whole group rides Horus's sandwave to go to the gemstone cave. While traveling, Persia details out that Tonura is the head of the Tonura Trading Company and bears a grudge against her big brother Alibaba. The children Horus had saved from slavery was also Tonura's slaves. Hearing this, Phi quickly realizes that Tonura's goal is the gemstone sand. Horus is curious as to how the fat merchant had learned about the cave when he and the others and now Persia are the only ones who know about it. If Tonura had his eye on the desert's untapped resources, it wouldn't be strange to Persia that he'd be here. Upon hearing this, Mel can immediately tell that the fat merchant is a very shrewd man. Holding his weapon, Ain doesn't care what kind of person he is. To him, anyone who tramples on his master's land and harms Ain's soldiers will be struck down without mercy. With that, the group hurries towards the gemstone cave. Arriving outside the cave, the group sees the thieves below guarding the cave's entrance. Horus gives Ain the go signal, saying he'll back him up if anything happens. The thieves are then ambushed by both Horus and Ain. They don't even answer the thieves' question and proceeds on knocking them out. The archer goes down almost immediately. While Ain is busy, another man tries to attack him from behind. However, Morgiana quickly uses her spatial magic, spatial storage, and just like that, the man's weapons disappear. Horus then uses sand magic, sand geyser, to blow the thieves away. Phi looks at their figures in the sky, saying she won't need to step in after all. Taking one of the remaining thieves hostage, Ain angrily commands them why they had set foot on his lord's territory. The man looks puzzled, saying he doesn't know anything about that since they're just hired adventurers. A woman also says their employer only said something about gemstones, but they were only told to guard the entrance. Phi doesn't look impressed, asking these adventurers why they're opening their lips so easily and if they're trying to pull some stunt. The archer from earlier says they're just weighing the reward against their life. They did give them the information, so they expect Horus and the others to spare them. The woman then shares how their employer had taken their medicine, so it's not like they can make it back on their own. After a while of thinking about it, Horus asks Isis to heal these people. When Isis asks if he's sure, Horus tells her he is, since these people don't seem to have any will to fight anymore. With that, Isis starts healing the adventurers. The archer is surprised to have found such a soft-hearted fool in the desert of death. He does thank Horus for the kind gesture. Before Horus leaves, the archer stands up to ask him if he's the rumored exiled prince of the Magref Empire. Horus grows quiet. Horus realizes the news of his exile has spread, even in the Republic of El Dorado. He doesn't answer the archer's question but thanks him for the intel. Even so, the prince can't forgive them for what they did to the ants. The archer stares at Horus's retreating figure, understanding what the prince had just said. From the outside, they can all hear the booming laughter coming from inside the cave. There, Tonura is smiling from ear to ear as he takes in all the jewels inside the cave. Tonura crouches down as he exclaims that these are all his now. He then yells at everyone to start searching the entire cave. Once they're done here, he wants them to search the surrounding area too. The Tonura Trading Company is seizing everything at once. One of his men then urgently reports that there are multiple intruders and highlights the human who uses sand magic. One of the mages then uses his magic to spy on the so-called intruders. There, Tonura can see Horus and his group. There's a knight with antenna, a group of women and demi-humans. The mages then think they have the advantage against sand magic. They'll just sweep them away with formation magic. The mages then raise their scepters all together and use formation water magic. Destructive water wave. With this, Bistul believes sand magic won't be able to block this large amount of water. However, his eyes widen when he sees the huge iron sand wall in the midst of the water. Horus smiles, thanking Phi for her great advice from earlier. Meanwhile, Bistul is baffled that the prince can block water magic using sand. The water isn't that high when you have an even higher and sturdier iron sand wall. Looking at it now, Horus is glad that Phi helped him prepare for countermeasures against water magic. The prince is still using his sand magic to create the iron sand wall, making Bistul realize it's actually iron. With that, he raises his scepter and manifests another water-type spell. Water swirling like a whirlpool soon comes out of the magic circle, creating a weapon out of it. Not long, a long arrow-like water weapon shapes and Bistul quickly releases it towards Horus's iron sand wall. As soon as it hits the iron sand wall, the arrow splatters all over it. One of Tonura's men then points out that Bistul's attack isn't working at all. However, Bistel calmly informs him it's fine since he has other plans at bay. Bistel continues attacking the iron sand wall with his water arrows. Because of that, everyone can't counterattack since they're all hiding behind the wall. Fi takes her hand out to feel the splattered water, giving it a taste for good measure. That's when she realizes what Bistel's plan really is. The arrows are actually made of concentrated salt water made with magic. The mage is pretty sharp for noticing the sand wall is made of metal. That's why Bistel's been trying to continuously shoot at it so that it will corrode. Giving Horus a back hug, Fi asks his master what will he do now. If this keeps up, Fi reminds him she'll be able to do whatever she likes with his body. As her hand trickles down to his pants, Horus begins to blush profusely and tells the Sphinx not to say things like that. Still, they can't make progress with how things are going. Horus then shouts to let Bistel know that the wall won't rust and demands they just give up. However, Bistel refuses to do so. No matter who their opponent is, they will finish their job. That is the only path Bistel and his comrades have. Persia then approaches Horus and suggests he spread the wall. Although puzzled by it, Horus still expands the wall. The iron sand wall has now covered the entire cave. Bistel looks at it with curiosity. Even if it didn't corrode, he is curious if the wall's durability has finally dropped. With that, he tells his comrades they'll keep trying to shoot at it. One of the mages then urge him to stop so they can see what's happening. The water is spilling from where the iron sand wall stands. This is just as Persia planned. Now that the water's pooling, all there's left to do is for Persia to drop this elixir in the water. As soon as she tosses it, the mages start writhing in pain as bolts of electricity flow their bodies. Horus could only watch in horror. When he asks if they're still alive, even Persia isn't so sure herself. Horus then asks what the elixir was, to which the Catwoman details out that it was a self-defense electric shock drug. Thanks to the salt water, it worked even better than expected. With Bistel and the other mages unconscious, Horus and the others can now enter the center of the gemstone cave. Upon arriving, Tonura calls them thieves who dare to aim for jewels that belong to him. Horus stares at him, obviously baffled by such claims. Morgiana answers the fat merchant, telling him that Horus is the rightful owner of the gemstone cave. Tonura then sarcastically asks them if Horus's name is written on it because he doesn't see anything saying that. Then Tonura realizes Horus has quite a lot of women in his company. Seeing them, the fat merchant grins maniacally and commands all the women to become his pets. Yup, he wants the black-haired woman, the one with the one white hair, the very gifted one with the antennae, the demi-human, and of course the flat-chested pair. Smiling so deviously, Tonura promises to give all of them a very good time. Horus's lips form a straight line as he goes to shield the women from Tonura. The prince asks the fat merchant to not look at the women like that. He even said please. Tonura then realizes Horus is their leader and tells him to shut his mouth. After calling Horus a stupid-faced brat, he demands the women to come to him and he'll give them whatever they want in return. Suddenly, blood spills everywhere as Tonura loses his hand. It flies through the air before making a loud thump on the sandy ground. Tonura's eyes widen as he takes in the sight before him. That was quite a handy attack. No pun intended. Crouching to the ground, Tonura screams in pain while his men try to use a high-quality potion to reattach the severed arm. After that, Tonura stands right back up and angrily tells them they're going to pay for what they've done. However, Fi calmly stares at the thieves, saying they're the ones who don't understand the gravity of what they've done. Tonura's men shudder in fear as they take in the being behind Fi. Here is Fi's true form, her Sphinx. She informs them how they've insulted her master, who's acknowledged by the Sphinx. This is a crime worthy of 10,000 deaths. Tonura's men can feel the intense pressure coming from Fi. It's so intense they can hardly breathe. Tonura still remains unfazed, instructing his men to take all the women alive and to kill the men. Bistel then summons Orthros, the two-headed wolf, and instructs it to attack the so-called Sphinx. Another mage then summons Fang Dragon soldiers after that. Fi is interested with the turn of events and now wants to play with the wolf for a bit. On the other hand, Horus warns everyone not to let their guard down. Ain then tells the prince he'll handle the summoner of the Fang Dragon soldiers. With that, Horus doesn't waste much of their time and uses his sand magic to use Sand Giant Crushing Fist. A huge knuckle sandwich should be enough for these Fang Dragon soldiers. Once the Fang Dragon soldiers are all severed bones, Horus gives Ain the go signal to attack its summoner. Ain quickly runs towards the mage, leaping into the air with his weapon. Before he attacks, he tells the mage now's his only chance to beg for mercy. The mage is unbothered, bantering back that he's only going to be sorry for killing Ain. And so the two begin a battle of their own, with Ain striking using his large dagger-like weapon and the mage with his long-edged sword. Ain then tells them they'll know in matter of minutes as to how long the mage's confidence will last. He even demands that the mage keep that smug smile while he can. Soon Ain's attack throws the mage off his balance. Now on the ground, Ain quickly goes to step on the mage's chest with just one stomp of his foot. The sand explodes all over them. The mage is now unconscious, making Ain comment on how his opponent was no more than a lowly bandit. Meanwhile, Bistel has injected a specially made booster into Orthros. With this, he believes even a Sphinx won't stand a chance. Orthros is now hulked up. When Bistel gives it the go signal to attack Fi, the Sphinx only lifts her pointy finger and boom! Orthros is sent spiraling in a massive tornado. Bistel can only watch as the tornado hurls and swirls Orthros. After it finally dissipates, Orthros' dead body lands on the ground with a huge thud. Phi's not done yet. Bistel never stood a chance against her in the first place. With another swift of her finger, Bistel's whole body is now on the ground, his face smothered in the sand. Well, his opponent is a sphinx after all. Seeing that the only one left in his army is Jack, Tonura commands the giant to become his shield until they defeat them. However, Jack refuses to do so since everyone has already been defeated and there's only 2 of them left. Tonura stares at Horus with annoyance. If it comes to this, the fat merchant has no other choice but to force Jack to fight. Before Jack can even refuse, a binding chain appears on his neck and activates berserk mode. Trying to resist this awful command, Jack crouches to the ground in pain. He doesn't really want to hurt anybody at all. Seeing this, Horus is stunned. Even Persia knows this is bad, especially with the berserk spell built into the giant's collar. Tonura has also activated a magic circle for teleportation. As he holds a slave hostage, Tonura explains that the berserk spell makes Jack go on a rampage until he dies. The only way to stop him is to kill him. After that, Tonura pushes the girl away and finally escapes the gemstone cave. Left to fend off the berserk Jack, Horus looks at the giant with alarm. He's worried now, especially that the giant is beginning to punch the cave's interiors. The giant has gone completely berserk, trampling on everything inside the cave. Persia rides onto Horus's shoulders for safety. As they back away, she can see that Jack has already forgotten himself and won't stop rampaging now. If this keeps up, the cave and all of them are done for. The prince then asks if they really need to kill Jack in order to stop him. Meanwhile, Morgiana holds the slave in place. She's been worried about Jack and wants to go after the giant. Morgiana asks the slave to calm down as she tries her best to hold the slave. Shackles tries speaking up, saying they should just finish off the giant quickly. However, the slave begs Horus to save Jack and tells them he's a kind-hearted giant. They just need to take that collar off of him. Now that they have a way to stop Jack without having to kill him, they now need to think of a way on how to take that collar off. Persia then says they need to analyze the cell first if they're going to remove it. When the prince asks if it's really possible, Persia assures him it is. After all, she's a clever merchant to begin with. If she can analyze the spell, Persia might be able to remove the collar and lift the berserk state. In that case, Horus quickly let go of Persia, who stumbles off the ground. He then activates a magic circle and uses sand perception. As Horus's sand wraps around the giant's body, the prince tells everyone to give it their best. They need to hold him off until the spell analysis is finished. With that, everyone joins Horus in distracting the giant. Ain is blocking off the giant's punch when Morgiana tries to fend it off. Using her spatial magic, Morgiana transports Mel into midair and unleash an arrow towards the giant's head. Mel smiles triumphantly, proudly saying Jack's weaker now, but that attack should still draw his attention. And it does, because now Jack is crouching and staring at Mel eye to eye. Jack then lets out an angry roar at Mel, who immediately goes off running away. Finally, Persia has finished her spell analysis and informs Horus of it. The prince smiles in victory before casting another magic circle to restrain the giant's movements. Using sand magic Iron Sandbind, Horus is able to entrap Jack in a series of sand ropes. Then Morgiana uses her spatial magic to transport Persia onto its nape. With a couple of tools with her, Persia unlocks the collar, and in a matter of seconds it breaks into bits and pieces. Jack then collapses to the ground unconscious. Isis quickly goes to heal the giant. Not long, Jack is already sitting up and is being hugged by the slave Rabia, who tells him everyone had helped save him. Horus and the others all give the giant a smile, saying they're just glad he's safe now. Jack has realized he had caused everyone trouble because he went berserk. Rabia tries consoling him, defending him it's not his fault but Tonurabia's. While everyone else gathers around Jack, the prince notices someone missing. He quickly asks everyone where Phi is. Meanwhile, Tonurabia is traveling the desert of death by foot. While walking, he blames that brat who got exiled from the Empire. To think he's alone in a place like this too. Still, he smiles as he thinks of the giant Jack running wild right now. By the rhyme, Tonure regroups with the troops. He'll make sure to head out to reclaim the resources. Suddenly, he hears someone answering him back, commenting on what a foolish plan he's come up with. Exactly the type a stupid person like him would think of. Crossing her arms, Phi looks down on Tonura, who immediately recognizes her. Delusional. He smiles and asks if she's come to become his woman now. Phi gives him a sounding no and explains she merely came to carry out a purge. When Tonura asks why should he be dealt by the likes of Phi, the Sphinx immediately shows him her true form. Tonura has insulted the person chosen by the Sphinx, so this greed-soaked pig should know his place. Tonura loses his balance and stumbles to the ground, fearing for his life as he stares at the Sphinx in front of him. He then starts kneeling for forgiveness, explaining he had no idea Phi is truly a divine beast. Phi then turns into her human form, telling Tonura what he'd done was unforgivable. Normally Phi would test one's worth with riddles, but there's no need for that now. Suddenly a Deathstalker raises its sharp tail behind Tonura. A few seconds later it stabs Tonura by the neck. Seeing this, Phi says things are getting interesting now. Tonura never got to see what bit him since it crawled beneath the sand after. Fi then bids him goodbye. There's no longer any need for her to lay a hand on Tonura since he'll writhe and die from the Deathstalker's venom anyways. As Fi disappears, Tonura starts coughing up blood. His eyes then begin to bleed blood as well. That's not his only problem too. Monsters begin to stalk Tonura, who's now scared of dying in a place like this. However, the fat merchant's body feels too heavy. He has no energy to get up nor to crawl his way out. Soon the monsters are now above him, their mouths salivating as they prepare to devour Tonura. A scream is then heard from the Desert of Death. Now we know why it's called the Desert of Death. Meanwhile, at the Gemstone Cave, Horus is looking for Fi. The Sphinx suddenly appears out of nowhere, hugging the prince as she assures him she's just right here. She then tells Horus that Tonura was eaten and killed by desert monsters. This was never a place where someone who can't even defend themselves could survive. Hearing this, Horus's eyes begin to sadden, but he clearly understands what Fi had meant. With that, he tells everyone they'll head back to the castle for now. They also need to treat the people who are unconscious too. In the direction of the castle, Horus then summons his sand magic to create a sand tunnel. This should help them avoid the cold night. Using her magic, Mel also creates lights for the tunnel. Before they leave, Jack and Rabia both call Horus to ask if it's really okay for them to go with them. Horus quickly tells them yes, saying they can stay as long as they like, especially that they have nowhere else to go. Jack begins calling Horus master, but the prince immediately tells him not to call him, so after that, Horus tells everyone they'll head out now and they'll talk things over tomorrow. As soon as they arrive at the castle, they're all in a loss for words. The castle is still and will always be a grand sight to behold. The mage then apologizes. Even though they were enemies not long ago, Horus has given them not only treatment but beds and meals as well. With that, the mage thanks Horus for being merciful king. The desert is a harsh place and Horus only wants them to help each other out. When the mage asks if this is Horus's country, the prince denies this and says it's nothing grand like that. A castle, an oasis, resources, people, and even friendly monsters, these are all present here. At this point, the mage says it might be worth seriously considering building a nation. Although tempting, Horus doesn't want to think about that for now. He can't consider it immediately, and more than anything, he needs to talk with everyone first. Besides, there's also the thought of not getting so fixated on having a country. The mage agrees, saying that whether that kind of thinking will hold up in the future is another matter. Sooner or later, the outside world will learn about Horus. At that time, whether this place functions as a country or not will make a huge difference. There are far more who would target this desert than Horus will realize. And because he has a country, there are equally many things he can protect. Hearing all that, Horus can't help but agree. The mage then apologizes for speaking so boldly to him. Horus dismisses his apology, assuring him that he had brought up a good point, so it's all good. Persia then interrupts their conversation, greeting them both a good morning. She has already figured most of her business yesterday, so now she'll be taking her leave. Smiling, Persia says she's looking forward to their trade and she's sure her big brother will be delighted of the news she'll bring. Turning toward Persia, the mage asks if she would hire them as escorts. However, Persia has another idea. She asks if the mage doesn't have any intention of creating an adventurers guild here and become guildmaster. Both men are shocked with Persia's proposal. If this guild goes through, Horus's dream of a country will take one more step closer to reality. Persia's idea seems ludicrous or maybe just surprising. She plans on building an adventurers guild in the middle of the desert after all. Not only that, she wants Swim to be the guildmaster. Of course, the two boys would be shocked. Horus asks Persia to wait and explain this plan of hers in a way everyone can understand. Right now, her idea sounds crazier than Swim's country proposal. Swim seconds this motion, wanting to know the intuition behind this sudden idea. Waving the boys to calm down and hold their paws, Persia first wants everyone to consider the interests of each party. Horus wants to live safely with everyone in the desert. Swim aims to be promoted from a regular adventurer to guildmaster. And lastly, Persia wants to pioneer trade routes with the desert area as Alibaba Trading Company. If Horus establishes this area as a country, the trade with the company can help develop the nation more safely. Horus is now following where Persia's idea is headed. Then she turns to Swim as asks him if he plans on ranking up to rank B, to which the adventurer confirms. Persia sees no problem since all three of them want something that aligns with each other's goals. For Swim, using a failed quest as a chance for promotion to guildmaster is an incredible return. And of course, Persia, as the only trading company dealing with the desert, will support Horus's country. With the desert resources, they can strengthen their market position and expand their scale. With that, everybody wins. Horus then raises a question about why they need to establish a guild. Persia tells him that they'll have Horus handle requests from the trading company. Now that Tonura is gone, Alibaba Trading Company is the top company in Eldora. The scale of the requests is several times what Horus can imagine. Even for Horus, that's impossible. Persia doesn't know why Horus is hesitating right now, but she wants to let the prince think about this plan carefully, especially that this place was built around Horus. And even if it's just a small village right now, He needs to anticipate the thought that more people will come in the future. By then, what will happen? Will Horus have to take care of everyone as well? Persia makes a good point. Sharing responsibility with everyone is precisely why Horus should have a country. Bearing too much burden by himself is way too irresponsible. Persia looks at him with a smile, telling the prince how it would be better if everyone shared the responsibilities. With Isis, Mel, Ain, Phi, Morgia, Swim, and of course Persia, they can all help Horus build the country together. This has Horus recalling that one time Isis had clasped his hands, determined to help the prince make the greatest kingdom together. Phi suddenly chimes in, calling this a good opportunity. She was thinking the timing is right as well. Persia's proposal couldn't be more perfectly timed. Mel excitingly asks Horus if he's going to become king now. Ain also cheers on, supporting his lord on this moment they've all been waiting to come. Even Morgia agrees with everyone. This is the natural course of things. Seeing everyone being so supportive, Horus can't help but get touched. Before he can reel in the feeling, a miniature creature suddenly appears on his shoulder. This creature happily says Sandy, making Horus turn towards it. Not sure if Horus is surprised to see the creature on his shoulder or maybe just startled. Anyways, the creature holds up its tiny arms and continues to sing-song the word Sandy. Horus's shock is immediately replaced with curiosity when Phi mentions the creature as a sandman. Sandmen are sand spirits, and this one must have manifested because it's drawn to the power Horus possesses. Both Isis and Morgia are starstruck with how cute and adorable this sandman is. Phi goes on to share that sandmen are whimsical spirits of good fortune. To be liked by one is quite something. Look, it's even doing a cute pose right now. Staring at it, Horus smiles warmly as it thanks the Sandman. However, the Sandman suddenly leans forward, showing Horus a very angry face. It starts hitting Horus's face with its tiny hands, making the prince confused why it's kind of angry at him right now. Phi then suggests that the prince give the Sandman a name. Taking it in his hands, Horus gives it the name Sandy. Yep, just as what the Sandman had been chirping all this while. Pretty creative there, Prince Horus. Anyways, Sandy is pretty much happy with its new name, and because of it, it starts emitting light, which could possibly mean it's changing its appearance like Mel and Ain before. Or not. Well, at least it's still cute. After that, Phi reminds Horus of their plan. In any case, especially that a desert spirit has taken a liking towards the prince, there's not much proof Horus needs to deny that Persia's plan can absolutely be achieved. Horus looks at everyone with great worry. He's not really sure if he's the right one. Is someone like him, who was exiled from the Empire, really fit on becoming a king? Coincidentally, Swim's assistants come out of the castle. They've noticed it's been pretty noisy since this morning. Seeing that his comrades are here, Swim takes this opportunity to tell them that Horus is going to build a nation. With that, Swim will establish an adventurers guild right here. When he asks what they all think of this plan, all three adventurers tell Swim they will all stay and support such a great idea. Swim didn't think it was easier than he'd expected. Turning towards Horus, Swim gives him a smile. The prince quickly realizes he needs to make a speech too. And so, he tells everyone of his declaration in founding of the Sand Kingdom. He's made up his mind now. If everyone will support him, Horus is sure that he can do it. Together, they will build the greatest nation in the world. Meanwhile, back at Magref Empire, Emperor Shafriel Maglev is furious to learn that Morgia hasn't been located yet. The guard tells the Emperor how they're currently conducting a diligent search with battalion-level forces. Before he could even finish his report, the Emperor cuts him short, telling him of how slow they are. The woman beside the Emperor then tells him that it might be possible that Morgia followed that trash. The Emperor quickly debunks this, calling it impossible. While it's true that the only one who paid attention to Horus was Morgia, the Emperor sees it impossible that his daughter would choose an incompetent fool who can do nothing but play in the sand. In the first place, Morgia's room should have had measures to prevent spatial teleportation, so the Emperor wonders how she had managed to escape the Empire. Their little discussion gets interrupted when one of the guards inform the Emperor that General Wiles has arrived. After apologizing for his intrusion, the commander of the Imperial Knights from the 5th Division is here to report about the Asbel rebels. General Wiles tells the Emperor that the suppression will be complete shortly. He's just here to report it ahead of time. The Emperor then praises Wiles for his efforts that have bear great fruit. He also encourages the general to continue to devote himself for the sake of the country. General Wiles then asks His Majesty of the whereabouts of his future wife Morgia. The Emperor's face scrunches in disdain, telling the general that they're currently conducting a thorough search as of now. Ideally, the general would wish to personally handle this matter, but he needs to attend to the dungeon issue ASAP. The Emperor doesn't even say anything else, just agrees with General Wiles. From what General Wiles has heard, the dungeon, enlarged by the research, has now far surpassed manageable limits. No unit can undertake a long-term operation without immediate resupply. That's why he's taking matter into his own hands. After pouring himself a drink, General Wiles clinks his wine-filled glass with the Emperor's. He then tells His Majesty that the next time he'll hear that sound will be at the wedding ceremony and nowhere else. Soon after, General Wiles leaves. Well, that sounded more of a threat to me. Frustrated, the Emperor thinks about the situation at hand. He needs to know whether Morja is alive or dead at least. What he doesn't know is that the princess is happily rejoicing the new Sand Kingdom Horus had built. Back at the Sand Kingdom, Horus seems pretty occupied by the view in front of him. When he woke up, Horus just felt like he couldn't move his body and somehow his view ended up like this. And by this, he meant in this compromising position with Mel's chest pressed firmly on half of his face. For now, Horus needs to slip out without waking anyone up. That includes Mel, who's still asleep in this position. Horus then hears a soft grunt from nearby. He tries squeezing his hand and immediately realizes he's touching Isis's melons right now. Horus is so confused with what on earth is going on right now, he doesn't even know what he's grabbing, but his hand is inside someone's clothes. That much he can tell. And if you think that's the worst of his dilemma, Morja is here as well and is heavily sleeping in between his legs. This means that the one hugging Horus's left arm is Phi. And so, Horus's plan of getting out of here without waking everyone up seems to be a much more complicated task to accomplish. He's also torn between what to feel. He wants to get away, but a part of him also wants to stay like this. After some time, Horus finally got out of that position and went on about his daily activities. Right now, he's at the top of the sand tower, just reeling in his reality. This was the Desert of Death, where he was exiled from the Empire just because he had sand affinity. At first, Horus was the only one here, but more people came, and now it had become a country. The Tanura incident is being handled by adventurers returning with Persia to El Dorado. Swim and his party, who stayed behind, together with the children they had rescued, are working every day for the nation's growth. If there's one small problem, it's that Horus is not used to his title. Just like now, he spots the adventurers and the children working, so he uses his sand wave to go down to help them. Everyone instantly greets him, calling Horus Your Majesty. The prince then asks them if they're spreading the fertilizer they made, to which they all confirm. However, they all feel wrong to have their king help them. This is what Horus was thinking about earlier. He's not used to being called king. Yet everyone just casually throws the word around like it's such a natural thing to say. Still, Horus sticks around to help with the fertilizer. After that, the children thanks their king for helping them. Standing on the side, a mouth-watering pool watches the exchange. By mouth-watering, I meant that quite literally. When Horus asks her what's wrong, Pool's mouth literally starts pooling drool. She's feeling so ecstatic seeing such a cute king and even sees the kids as tasty looking. That last part doesn't even make sense. Looking at her, Horus can't help but feel like Pool is kind of hard to read. She's one of Swim's members, yes, and she's really a good person who helps the fields with water magic, but Horus can sense Pool being very mysterious. After some time, Pool finally calms down and tells Horus how she'll watch the kids. Smiling, Horus suggests they take a short break now that things have settled down. Coincidentally, Raigu is walking their way carrying a box. He then asks the prince, scratch that the king, if he has work for him to do. Horus tells him there aren't really any requests for now since the guild isn't finished yet, but Raigu says it doesn't have to be a guild request and could be a personal task from Horus. However, the king tells him there's no need to hunt at the moment, so he'll just call Raigu if something comes up. Raigu then agrees, telling the king he's up for it whether it's hunting or a dungeon expedition. At the mention of dungeons, Horus's imagination immediately travels to places where adventurers go to explore and find treasure. He's starting to get a little excited just thinking about it too. Imagine exploring and encountering with the unknown, then finding treasure as a reward. His thoughts are interrupted when Ain calls his attention. It's not just him that's been looking for Horus too. When Horus asks them what's wrong, Isis tells him they have something to discuss with him. Horus's face displays surprise. Isis is also calling him Your Majesty now. Isis then tells him it's only right because he's the king after all. They thought this way of speaking is appropriate. Horus stares at them blankly. He absolutely hates being called this. It feels like there's a huge distance between them. Slowly, Horus tells Isis that calling him Your Majesty is a bit too much and expresses how he'd be happier if she talks to him like she always does. And so, Isis calls him by his name again, which makes Horus happily smile. Phi then congratulates Isis. That earlier just returned Isis to the heroine race. Isis quickly turns to the Sphinx and start berating her. Phi only ignores Isis, letting her rant go through one ear to another. Horus is glad that they're back to normal again. After that, Horus asks them about what they wanted to talk about. Morja is the one who tells him about the country's name. Since they're building a nation, it's only natural for it to need a name. That's why they all came to ask Horus about it. The new king thinks about it, long and hard. The matter of their country's name is a difficult one to decide on. He can't seem to think of anything. By this time, both Jack and Rabia join them, each carrying boxes of materials. When Horus asks them if anyone has an idea, everyone joins in on thinking of a country name. Both Jack and Rabia look at each other before the giant suggests using the king's name for the country. Thinking it's a good idea, Rabia then tells them how the kingdom of Horus fits perfectly. However, Morja tells them the name won't do. If the country's name is Kingdom of Horus, then her big brother's name would become Horus Horus. It sounds a bit ridiculous to Morja. One of the kids, Gretel, joins in on the group and suggests the name Horu Kingdom. Still, Morja rejects the name because Horus Horu is too much of a joke, so she can't even laugh at it. Horus then turns to Isis, asking her if she has any ideas. She thinks hard on it, but before she can even share it, Morja angrily rejects it. Moria's instincts are screaming that it's absolutely no good. Saying it again for good measure, Morja screams rejected at Isis's face. Sandy also chimes in, wanting to name the country Sandy Kingdom. Morja still rejects it since this is her big brother's kingdom and not the Sandman's. Someone then suggests naming it King, thinking it would be best. The Kingdom of King? Rejected. Someone opting to name it Pancakes? Rejected. Clearly, this person is just hungry. After that, Morja confidently tells them she's expected this outcome. Of course, her proposal will be the strongest contender. She then reveals her suggestion, naming the country Thabro. It seemingly translates to, "That's my big brother for you." Horus immediately rejects the idea, which leaves Morja in a state of despair. Seeing everyone's suggestions are getting rejected, Fi tells her idea, Baramdora. This piques Horus's interest. He doesn't know why, but it feels like it just clicked inside him. When Morja asks what it means, Fi shares how she borrowed it from an ancient royal family, and tells Horus he could adopt it as the name of a mighty and righteous king. Horus Baramdora. Yep, the new king likes it very much. From this day forward, this country will be forever known as Bramdora. Gretel then tells them she'll tell everyone of their country's new name. She happily runs to tell everyone it's Baramdora. Swim and his party, Raigu, and even Jack and Rabia. Meanwhile, Horus crouches down to look at Sandy, who's happily perched on one of the crops. To him, even if the country name is decided, nothing will actually really move forward until Persia returns. Left with him alone, Fi assures him there's no need to rush things. She steps closer, hugging Horus from the back and squishing him with her chest. When Fi tells him he can always massage her chest if he's bored, Horus closes his eyes and asks why does it always turn into this? Fi confidently points out to him that she has served him, her lord, and for that, she deserves a reward. For taking care of that filthy pig merchant, for deciding the country's name, and for thinking of her lord every day. After all, Fi thinks one squeeze from girl number 1 aka Isis this morning wasn't enough for him. Horus is surprised that Fi was awake this morning, but he also tells her honestly that he's also pent up. Drawing closer, Fi's hot breath is already fanning Horus's face. With tantalizing eyes, Fi suggests they go to a dungeon or something. The Sphinx then shares how the last time she used magic was when she did water countermeasures with Horus. Her body has been feeling sluggish ever since. Fortunately, the desert has lots of dungeons they can go to. They can gather supplies there and use them as bargaining material with Persia. Horus is speechless to say the least. He was already imagining something else. He just stared at Fi with puckered lips all the while she's talking. Could the king have anticipated a kiss earlier? Seeing Horus's reaction, Fi then smiles as she tells him that the rest can wait until tonight. After clearing the dungeon, their heated bodied will surely be in the right condition. Now Horus is blushing profusely as he imagines what that right condition entails. Suddenly, Morja interrupts them to tell Horus that the best thing for him would be to sleep with her instead. She also adds that if they're going, they should decide the members quickly. After all, the new king shouldn't be letting his guard down at all. After that, everyone gathers around so they could decide on their roles and tasks. Looking at them, Fi assigns everyone to, quite the unique tasks. Morja will be the luggage carrier since she has spatial magic. Isis will be bandage substitute because of her healing magic. The camel will be the hydration source. And the rest, which comprises of Ain and Rest team, can be the meat wall. Raigu, Search, and Aron are all excited for this new expedition. It's been quite a nice journey even though they underestimated sand magic at first. With her chin up, Morja boasts that it's because her brother is the ruler of sand, so it's only natural. Wow, slow down, Pinocchio. Even Shackles thinks that's a bold claim. Isis then chimes in to defend Morja's claims. She points out that Horus is actually recognized by the sand spirits, so Morja's words might not be entirely wrong. Shackles dryly chuckles, saying those sand spirits are not the big deal anyway. With that kind of statement, Morja asks it if it's trying to compete with sand spirits. Hearing all of this, Sandy finally talks. Shackles is taken aback with the supposed sand spirit. It's nothing but a sand doll who dared to laugh at the mighty Shackle. Sandy doesn't seem bothered at all, making Morja declare the sand spirit the winner. After their preparation, they all venture out in the sand ruins to look for their dungeon. It also looks like the sandstone might collapse any moment, so Horus urges everyone to be careful as they move forward. As they walk and jump through the sand cliffs, they encounter what looks like sand ghouls. Both Ain and Raigu are amped up to slay such beasts. However, they didn't anticipate the huge sand scorpion that's aiming towards Horus. It's a good thing Sandy's here. This little spirit raises both of its hands to create a shield for Horus, and almost immediately, the monster is no more. Now, whoever underestimated this little creature should think twice. After some time, they finally arrive at the entrance of their desert dungeon, a pyramid. Horus stares at the magnificent desert dungeon in front of him. This one is a pyramid, as confirmed by Fi. They waste no time and head inside the pyramid where Search tells everyone he'll take it from here. With his lead, he'll take care of traps and enemy detection. Raigu praises his comrade for being reliable when it comes to scouting. Smiling, Horus asks Search to take care of all of them. As Search leads the way, he ushers everyone to a halt. He then tells everyone to take a look at the holes on the wall. Some floor tiles will likely trigger a trap that shoots tons of arrows from those holes. When Morja asks what to do, Search begins feeling up the wall. Traps like this usually have a disarm switch on the wall. Wanting to speed up things, Horus uses his sand magic to create a sand wall. Sand instantly covers the walls. This way, if it's covered with sand, the arrows won't be able to fly out. Search stares at the scene in disbelief. Looking at Horus's spell kinda kills his confidence with his skill. However, Horus assures him it's all thanks to him that they learned about the trap. Search blushes and chuckles, telling everyone they can keep moving now. He also promises to spot every single trap they'll encounter. Spotting these traps was a breeze for Search too. As they moved along, he's able to identify a pitfall in one of the floor tiles. He then instructs everyone not to wander off or else they'll hit landmines. Leading the way, Search tells them to walk on the same spots he did so they won't hit any traps. However, a rock hits one of the landmines and activates it. Dust fills the room as the ceiling starts moving downwards. Before it could totally close on them, Search urges everyone to run through the other side. They manage to enter a room where they're completely sealed from where they entered earlier. A noise has Horus curious as to what could be inside the same room as them. Peeking through the doors, they realize it's a treasure mussel, literally a toned body with a treasure box for its head. Even Isis is weirded out with its appearance. Look at those muscles it's flexing right now. Just before they could come up with a plan, Ain steps inside to face the treasure mussel. Horus is surprised with this move, asking Ain on what he's planning to do. He doesn't answer Horus at all. Instead, his eyes are laser-focused on the treasure mussel as he challenges it to a battle of muscles. That's right, Ain wants this treasure mussel to tremble before Ain's muscles. Ain then shows off his biceps, which urges the treasure mussel to retaliate by tightening his torso. This has Ain stunned, and for once he admits that the treasure mussel has the upper hand right now. However, Ain refuses to lose, so he challenges the treasure mussel to a fight. Drawing first blood, Ain swings his staff towards the treasure mussel, but it takes out a pair of dumbbells from its treasure box and blocks Ain's attack. No one expected their enemy to take out dumbbells at all. The treasure mussel then grips the dumbbells tighter and swings it right into Ain's face. Now that Ain's down, its next target is Horus. It wastes no time and opens its treasure box, unleashing loads of dumbbells towards Horus. It's not raining men, but dumbbells. Horus quickly uses sand magic, Iron Sand Shield. Not wanting their enemy to put everyone's lives in danger, Horus then summons his sand giant Fierce Iron Fist. A huge sand fist immediately appears and knocks the treasure mussel off his place. Dust and sand cover the place as the treasure mussel is rendered immobile, splattered on the wall. The treasure mussel then gives them a thumbs up before finally transforming into a regular treasure box. Everyone cheers for Horus as they realize the treasure mussel has been defeated. They say it acknowledged Horus's muscles, to which the new king denies since Sand Giant Fierce Iron Fist is just magic. While they're busy chatting, Raku has gotten a hold of what's inside the treasure box. Everyone else inspects what's inside, which is some kind of dumbbell-shaped potion. If only Phi can appraise it so they'd all know the details. Isis finally notices Raku as the camel is about to drink the potion, but it's too late to stop the camel from drinking the potion. After chugging the whole bottle, Raku instantly begins getting bigger. And by bigger, like muscled. Let's just say Raku gaining muscle isn't something Isis is happy about. The Raku who used to be cute and fluffy is now, well, a body of toned muscles and a very prominent six-pack. The initial shock finally wears off, making Isis cry in despair. Her Raku used to be so cute, toddling around while making those ngongo noises. That big grin on Raku's face was an adorable sight to behold too. Only one disagrees with Isis's sentiments, saying he's a fan of Raku's new form. Well, only him and Raku are the only fans of this new form. The other girls then assure Isis everything's going to be okay and she should just wait for the potion to wear off. While walking, Search spots something big headed their way. As the thing draws closer, all of them realize it's actually a power elephant. Everyone, including Horus, jolts back in fear. An elephant this huge in this cramped up corridor? It's just a recipe for disaster. There's no way then can dodge it now too. When all of them seem to step back hopelessly, it's Raku that steps forward to defend his friends. Using his new form and power, Raku puts both his hands onto the elephant's face and forcefully stops it from further advancing. And boy is Raku doing a good job doing so. Raku isn't done yet, oh no. The super camel then lifts the power elephant into the air and slams it back to the ground. As dust covers the area, everyone cheers on for Raku. They're very impressed that the camel managed to pull off a German suplex so easily. It may be a shining moment for Raku, but it all disappears in just a matter of seconds. The potion suddenly wears off, making Raku cry in sadness. He's totally back to normal now, and of course it's Isis who's happy to witness this. She immediately hugs the crying camel, assuring him that it's okay and that she likes how he looks now. After that, the group proceeds with their adventure. They soon find another room in this dungeon. Horus even realizes that this dungeon really feels way bigger than he initially expected. Raigu tells their king that this is actually how dungeons work. Fi then explains how this works. The space inside a dungeon gets heavily distorted. The higher one goes, the narrower it becomes, just like how the exterior design suggests. In exchange, the monsters get stronger. While Fi's talking about this, Horus has been busy busting some dungeon monsters too. This has Fi commenting how it won't be a problem for Horus at all. After that, the group soon sees a huge double-door entrance. Raigu then tells everyone they've now arrived at the mid-boss level. It's supposedly a tough enemy that appears at the dungeon's halfway point, which is where they are now. Opening the door, the group stumbled upon another muscular enemy, but this time around it's a mummified monster. Both Horus and Isis are frustrated to see another one since the last one was a bit weird. So now they'll just need to beat this thing fast and move on. With all this ruckus, the mummy finally turns around and sees the group. The mummy immediately defends itself against the spiraling shot launched towards it. The mummy unwraps his bandages and absorbs the arrow like it's nothing. Ain and Raigu also lunges towards the mummy, but the enemy is as quick as a fox. It manages to outmaneuver them, scratching only its bandages in the process. The mummy then flings itself towards Ain and wraps its legs around the Ant King's neck. Before you know it, Ain is being flicked and thrown to the other side of the room. After rendering Ain immobile, the mummy cartwheels its way towards Raigu. It aims straight into Raigu's face too. Seeing all this, Horus commands Morgia to bring out the diamond sand and to use her spatial magic to get Ain and Raigu to safety. Horus then focuses on attacking the mummy, starting out with some sand geyser. When the mummy dodges the attack, Horus launches his sand magic, Diamond Sand Crushing Fist. Just as the name suggests, a huge sand fist appears under the mummy. Horus's attacks send the mummy swatted into the ceiling. It's such a powerful attack that it even leaves a dent above. The mummy acknowledges its defeat, giving the group a thumbs up. In its place drops a treasure chest, just like the last time. Morgia is one proud sister to Horus right now. Fi is also smiling, hoping the mid-boss loot is at least something decent. Not long after, the treasure chest opens up. Inside is a shiny, bejeweled belt. Raigu's eyes start twinkling in excitement while everyone else just stare at him. Horus is just telling Raigu he can have the belt, but then, Raigu is actually wearing it already. He's even shouting how power is already swelling inside him. With his new toy, Raigu tells Horus they can move forward now. He even shares he feels like he can win any test of strength now. Morgia sighs in exhaustion. She's clearly had enough of all this muscle mode. This has Isis reminding Raku not to drink unknown potions like earlier. Anyways, a gleaming light appears on the side of the room, revealing the next floor for the next part of this dungeon adventure. The heat coming from the next floor isn't something one can dismiss. The group immediately heads to the entrance and finds exactly what Horus had guessed, the desert. Isis looks around, wondering if they've taken the exit route. However, Fi tells her this is just a structure unique to the dungeons. This is just an illusion of what's outside. One thing that proves that is the absence of the sun, which Fi points out. Even though this is just an illusion, the heat is the real deal, or it may even be worse than the desert heat. This has Horus urging everyone to be careful. A few minutes later, Morgia screams as she takes off her clothes. She can't take any of this heat any longer anymore. Even Isis is at her limits and is starting to raise her dress as well. Seeing Horus blushing while closing his eyes has Fi smirking cheekily. She then tells the king she's starting to feel hot too. As she starts undressing, Fi asks if she can cool herself down for a moment like the others. Horus shakily tells her to do as she pleases, as long as she doesn't do it in front of him. Horus then steers clear of all this temptation and starts scouting the area with Search. However, Search can't scout an area this wide, prompting Horus to crouch down and take over. Touching the sand, Horus uses sand detection and ultimately finds a spring nearby. Everyone follows the excited Horus. A spring will be a nice place to take a break with all this heat. Search tells Horus that he'll go ahead to secure the area. After Horus gives him his thanks, the group all wait for Search to come back with good news. In the meantime, they have to bear this glaring heat. Isis is even worried that another muscle monster might suddenly appear and attack them. Fi, using her magic, assures them that the only stuff coming out for now are food-level monsters. She's even managed to catch a big sandfish. Not long after, Horus spots Search running back towards them. He's too far though, so all they can hear is Search's muffled voice. As Search draws closer, he warns everyone to start running away because a giant sand monster is chasing him. Shackles tells Morgia that the sand monster is an ancient calamity made of magic known as the Sand Giant. The Sand Giant's hand then makes a grab at Horus. Luckily, Horus manages to use his sand magic, Sand Bind, to stop the Sand Giant. In Horus's mind, he believes that sand magic should be able to defeat an opponent that's made of sand. However, Horus's eyes widen as he stares at the Sand Giant. His sand magic isn't holding back the monster at all. Even Ain and the others' attacks aren't working on the Sand Giant as well. How will our heroes defeat this monster boss now?